Well, I can't use any of that because you cursed in the first 10 seconds. We'll be demonetized.
Look at what is happening here. Look what hellscape we're in. I said f*** at the beginning of the show, and now my political commentary is destroyed.
I'm trying to ingratiate you to our centrist and center-right audience a little bit.
Centrists are my enemy right now. That's who got us here, the centrists.
No, it wasn't the centrists. It was the people that ignored things happening in front of their eyes.
Yeah, that's what a centrist is, my friend.
No, it's not.
In this political spectrum right now, if you are a centrist, you believe at least 40% shit that is like made up and insane.
You're saying
right
so you're saying things in front of your eyes, because I've considered myself a centrist for most of my life.
Right now, you are like what I would have said a centrist was in 2020 or in 2018.
Oh, so you're saying it shifted.
If you're centrist right now, you're splitting the diff between Doge father and fucking whatever the fuck the Democrats are doing. You're a fucking idiot.
So you're saying the centrist now, it could go either way. So if I was a centrist 5 years ago, I'm center left or I'm like right wing. What are you saying now? You're between hard left and hard right. You're a centrist. You have some things that pull you one way and some things that pull you other. Obviously a lot less now pull me right.
I'm going to say that means you're not a centrist, my man. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not what a centrist is.
I theoretically was, but I'm not a centrist when it comes to
fascism.
Democratic Republic, fascism.
Techno-oligarchic fascism.
Correct. I'm not a centrist when I'm a centrist when it comes to.
I'm pretty tepid on that. I gotta say.
You took it into like forms of government, because now our democracy is now like we're now experimenting with oligarchy and authoritarianism straight up.
Yeah.
So it's an experiment. We'll see how far
it's like when
you have a science class in 7th grade and have asked them to build a volcano and it bubbles out. You didn't know if it was going to work or not, so we're going to see if it works. We're not sure.
I'm not sure.
We're not sure yet if it's going to be a success. Some Republicans are already turning against it. Some are not yet. They're waiting for.
Do you believe James Carville? Do you listen to that guy?
James Carville said that the Trump. What did he say? It's going to collapse within 30 days.
He said, "Just sit back and do nothing." That's the best thing, because they're just going to eat themselves alive.
There's already been a ton of lawsuits. We haven't officially started the podcast yet.
Hello, listeners.
This is the Not So Common Podcast. Welcome to the Not So Common Podcast. Alex Fasciani, Pat Contry, back again to discuss everything that's going to turn off 30% of the audience who voted for one of the political candidates that we'll discuss.
If you are 30% of the audience, I want to check in with you guys about what I said last time and what I said now.
Yes, what Alex said last time on the podcast, or 2 times ago, was within a month or so, ask yourself, is your life any better? That's what you said.
Yeah. I said, ask yourself if the things that are changing, that are concrete, are really in favor of you. Do you realize they're coming after the guns now? Have you seen this?
Oh, no, I haven't seen. They're coming after the guns?
Dude, it's Trump sitting at a table with somebody talking about how people out there with guns is dangerous and that we don't... Like, they're literally talking about, like, the reason why gun owners say they have guns, that is, like, some leftover shit from like the War of 1812 or whatever. Like,
I'm a gun owner. What?
You know the like sort of like the tired arguments that people make about guns. Like, we can talk about.
Yeah,
let me tell you something.
Okay.
I'm pro gun ownership. I think you should be able to own a gun if you do all the little hoops and make sure you're not a fucking psychopath who's going to go shoot 50 kids with a machine gun in the middle of the fucking day, right? That sounds pretty good.
Or more apparently, going to shoot your domestic partner.
Or 100 people at a nightclub in 1 second.
Most of the murders of these happens where, hey, I'm going to murder my ex-girlfriend because she dumped me. Like, that's what most of these things.
My point is, I'm not a fucking like asshole, right? Like, I don't think there's no reason why an American needs a gun. You know, even just for hunting, even whatever. I don't think there's any reason anyone needs an AR-15. Period. However, when you do argue with people who think that they should be able to own a small malicious military in their house,
because they want to say, well, it's an authoritarian government we're going to defend ourselves against.
And now the authoritarian government is like having press conferences about how they want to get in there and take your guns. What in the hell are you guys like?
It's what they claim the Democrats were always going to do but never did, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and Kamala was like, I love guns. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Kamala owns a Glock.
Yeah.
Of course, I would too. Former prosecutor. People want to kill you. Of course, you want to own a gun.
Yeah. Like, okay, my point is just, if you actually look at the things that you say you care about in the news, there is no way that you still think that this guy was the guy to back, right? Like,
so what did he just do then about this? What did he just do?
He had like a press conference with this other person. It's like the other, I forget who it was, and he's sitting there literally having a talk with them about how like he's going to take their guns away because it's not safe to have all these people out there with guns.
You think that's because of the assassination attempt?
I think it's because
it changed his mind.
I think it's some of that, and I think it's also literally the actual reason.
Luigi Mangione effect?
Like, I think the actual reason is that they don't want people to have weapons when it comes to it.
You think so? You're thinking it's going to come down to?
I don't think it's going to come down to that. I think they're terrified right now because they realize that they have no plan to keep anyone happy. That they like. Just okay. Let's go to the dumbest voters. Okay, let's go to the issues of the dumbest.
Is this how we're starting this? Okay, we're not going to. Okay, let's go to. I was going to talk about It's a Living first, but okay, go for it.
It's a Living is a relic from a time before we were at war, Pat.
We're not at war now. What are you talking about?
Dude, you better believe you're in a war right now. Like, you're in the coldest war you've ever been in against the richest people you've ever seen. Every American is in a personal war, Cold War, against Elon Musk, who doesn't... What is his job? What does he do? Who's the Doge administrator? Who's that?
They're supposed to be cutting out wasteful spending. That's what they're supposed to be.
Do you want to hear about... Do you know that a government... Do you know the Senate needs to make government... groups, and that we already have something like Doge called USDS. Do you know about the USDS?
Explain USDS. I'm not.
The United States Digital Service that was founded by Obama. That the point of it is to go in and make the government work like a modern government instead of like a 1980s like LAUSD school computer government. And like
school computer government from the 80s. Maybe have a bullet, has a little BBS on it.
You know, you've been to the library. You know what I'm talking about. You tried to find.
I didn't grow up in a rich neighborhood that had computers and libraries in the 80s, Alex. I don't remember that.
We had computers in the libraries in the early 2000s from the 80s. If we wanted to find a book,
you still had you had your 386s from 1988
at LAUSD. Yeah. I had school books. Okay. I had textbooks from before they were. I learned on an Apple II. In the late 90s.
Let's take a step back, and you dove right into what's happening.
I dove right in.
You have a billionaire who's, we don't know, allegedly his penis doesn't work, which may or may not be the cause of all this. Oh my God! You went so much harder. I'm just saying that's
things we could get in trouble for than I did.
I said allegedly. It's been alleged online. It has been.
Yeah, they'll cover you.
Trying to form the world in a way they see it for personal gain, first and foremost.
Yeah.
Gutting things that would be regulatory committees that would go after, I don't know, your electric cars or things of that nature.
Or voter fraud or many things.
In the meantime, trying to also just undo things with using college-age adults. I wouldn't say adults, just kids that are going in and looking at people's personal data, trying to get access to all the Treasury Department stuff, trying to get access to medical shit now.
Did you hear that in the last day, 21 of them resigned?
Because they refused to help, right? Is that what
we
happened?
will not lend our expertise to carry out or legitimize Doge's actions?
Yeah. So you have, this is I don't want to alarm people or think that this is a soft coup attempt. It is
100% a soft coup attempt.
They're not using guns to change a government, but they're going in and they're just typing things out and ripping things apart, trying to do it. You have Elon Musk trying to
make fetch happen. Yeah,
reshape the government and how he sees fit, including just willy-nilly firing federal employees, gutting USAID, not realizing what the short or long-term ramifications could be of doing all of this. And that's what's the most alarming, is that no one ever said we shouldn't be auditing things or looking into how these things money's being spent. It's we're going to just cut it like that, without waiting or talking to someone or an analysis.
That's not legal. Let's put it that way. Also,
yes,
it's not legal. It's not how you do it.
But not even having some analysis of, hey, what happens if we cut the funding even 20% to all our research grants around the U.S., like what would that do? Like I know someone that's personally affected by this, that does or lives in the world of research, can't like research for genome and protein synthesis stuff. Eventually, it all leads into like cancer research, which we've made leaps and bounds in cancer research the past 20 years. By the way,
right?
There are types of cancer that were death sentences 20 years ago that are now livable.
We had a breakthrough. Just to give you an idea, like maybe like 4 days ago. Now that we don't have cancer research anymore, we had a breakthrough just 4 days ago where people in, I believe, somewhere in Scandinavia or Korea, I think it was, figured out how to make cancerous cells heal themselves back to normal cells.
Wow. Okay.
But America ain't gonna get that.
So my friend Brian, who reminds me of you because you have similar personalities, but he's more the scientific version of you, but he also has a beard and long hair.
I'm like, the Doctor Strange version of your friend.
Yeah, he's the multiverse version of that. Yeah. So he said like they basically just went in and slashed funding. Was it 10 or 20%? They slashed everything they considered wasn't essential. But you can't just gut parts of a system out without it affecting everything. So you can't like say, oh, I'm going to gut out the administrators and the people that manage the budgets and just leave the researchers, because the researchers need the administrators to run the buildings and to pay the payroll and to, like you can't just cut out a bare percentage and not have it have drastic effects.
Let me tell you what the smugly smiling Trump voters are thinking about what you're saying right now, okay?
Sure.
That is why they're doing it.
Yes. But they don't know what it's affecting or how. Like that's the thing. They just think, oh, it's good on its surface to
No, it's exactly the same as Trump voting, right? Like every action that he takes in office, you have to remember it this way, because here's what happens when people who are like critical thinkers and like intellectual or like just present-minded individuals try to like reckon with what's happening. There's no good faith happening here. It's not like Elon Musk has the goal of making the government more efficient and he doesn't know how to do it and he's causing damage. What's happening is he knows exactly what he's doing. He's doing it because he wants to weaken the government of this country so that entities besides the people who are supposed to run it as we have designed it can come in and run it on their own, or attack us, or steal from us, or take money out of our national treasury.
It's influence. It's influence. It's global influence.
The fact that all these agencies have to deal with all this horse shit is they're saying this is how it's going to be now. So if you don't want to get a big pile of horse shit thrown on your desk every single day, you're just going to do what we say.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't know if this goes into the announcement.
That's what people like about it. That's what the people who like it like about it.
Yes, I want to talk about the effects more than the people. I don't give a shit about the people that like it. So they have no power to stop it or make it worse or improve it. The voters are used as pawns just to get us to this position.
Unless they step out into the streets and shoot me for trying to get them to vote.
This is my point. It's oligarchs trying to amass more power within themselves. And influence. Jeff Bezos just announced this morning, he's on the Washington Post, one of the biggest newspapers in the country.
The CEO of a giant company that owns the Washington Post made this announcement. Just like keep that in mind. The Washington Post, whose slogan is "Democracy dies in darkness," is the slogan of the Washington Post. By the way,
so basically, Jeff Bezos' announcement says that we're going to have the opinion pieces not be opinions anymore.
Yeah, he said they're all about free market and
personal liberties.
And he said that quit.
And he's basically said that if you have anything that goes against these principles, you can write somewhere else. So basically, he's having an influence now on the news, and it'll be the news as well. But for now, it starts with the editorials in terms of like this is the message he wants to give the world.
It's already the news.
The point is this: this is the entire playbook. When it comes to oligarchy, is they want to not just control how you purchase products and what you purchase, but they want to control the information that gets to you, to influence your mind, to get you to accept the things that they want to do while they're in power.
The reason Doge even exists right now is for this reason. Like literally the reason that we have to deal with Doge right now is because people were on the news like, Elon is doing Doge, which is a new government agency that's here to do this. When everybody knows that any new federal department requires an act of Congress. Everybody knows that he would have had to sit down and be subject to scrutiny to do anything like this. He now, what's her name? What's the name of the White House chick, the blonde chick who looks like the girl from The Boys?
Talking about the press secretary that's 27, but she somehow looks like she's 49.
Yeah, she looks like she's like 49, but like the substance.
I haven't seen The Substance yet.
It's like a version of you that's hotter and younger, but you like take turns. Anyway,
the only reason I'm commenting on how she looks is because I'm of the opinion that when you are ugly on the inside, it ages you externally.
It 100% does.
That's all I'm saying. Because when I found Carolyn Levitt, when everyone said she's 27, she looks like she's in her 40s, and it's not even a joke.
Yeah,
something happened to her.
She was on the podium. Somebody said, "Who is the Doge administrator?" And she said, "I'm not going to reveal the name of that individual from this podium. The person's name is Amy Gleason, who is the Doge administrator. She's from the USDS, and nobody has any idea who the fuck she is or anything. And like, we needed to get Musk before the Senate before they were in power. And now we can't do anything. And if you go back and you see clips of Musk right before the election, he's like, if Kamala wins, I'm fucked."
Yeah, because they would probably...
He's a foreign actor, dude. He is trying to do things different than what the government is trying to do. He is going around who you voted for. Like, man, don't people understand that the regulations are like why you can go be out in the middle of nowhere in America where you are isolated from anyone else and like go to the store and buy food for cheap and feed your family? Like, don't you understand that the reason those things are okay to buy is because we for hundreds of years have been trying to fix the situation that the last time rich people came, they fucked up? Have you read The Jungle by Upton Sinclair?
I was going to bring up The Gilded Age in The Jungle, which talks about how awful the meat factories were in Chicago, right? Was it Chicago? I believe it was Chicago.
It was 100% Chicago. Yeah. But actually, that's like low-key a socialist. Like, if you actually read The Jungle, the sausage bit is like one little... That just fucked up Teddy Roosevelt's breakfast one time, so he had to do something.
So basically, we're bouncing over the place. I'm not sure I want to publish this on YouTube because it's bouncing all over the place. We're giving people all these weird crash courses in what the Gilded Age was. So the Gilded Age was a period after the Civil War, and about 25 years, when it was a time of basically changing industrialization in the U.S. and basically the start of the factory for like cities and such, and people starting to work. They're working 60, 70 hours a week because there were zero regulations.
70 hours a week? Whoa!
Or more. I'm not even kidding. Because there were zero regulations. There was no child labor laws. Obviously there were no unions for the most part. There were no safety regulations. So The Jungle is a book that talks about some of this stuff.
They get together and team up and fight against, it's like union. It's like pre-union type shit like that, yeah.
So you had the rise of the big banks. You had the rise of, I have a list in front of me.
Steel was a big one.
Steel was a big one. But you have J.P. Morgan for the banks. You had Carnegie. You have Rockefeller. The reason Vanderbilt. The reason you know these names still now is because these are the people that basically ran the country through their influence and their money and their power for about a good 30 years after the Civil War. And it's not talked about that much in history class for some reason, because it was a very interesting part where they were trying to define like the post Civil War era for America, and they did for the most part. They ran the newspapers, which was the way you got news. They ran the biggest corporations. And
sort of like our brand was created during the Gilded Age on the world stage for Americans, and it was the first time that they separated, like the big line was drawn between not rich people and poor people, because that's like a thing that's been in American society for a long time, but extremely rich demigods with more power than humans should have, and even lesser rich people. Like there was like this. That's where the 1% appeared.
It was basically the Jeff Bezos of the world were started
the first time,
in this country then. Like these are people that have undue power. The people that built the railroads, the people that again the rise of the large national and major international banks,
media,
yes, the people that ran all the newspapers,
Hearst,
yeah, William Randolph Hearst. Like, this is when that started to happen. And then obviously you had pushback finally. And 1890s, early 1900s with the rise of unions, good old Teddy Roosevelt pushed for workers' rights and things like that. Like, you had to have this correction because it went off the fucking rails and people didn't know what was happening. That's happening again. This playbook is playing out again now. Except the good news is that we see it all happening in front of our eyes in real time, and we can respond to it. That's the difference. You couldn't in 1885 when you were working 60, 70 hours a week and you had to buy at the company store. Hence, that's a song that came out
at the company store
because you were locked in basically into corporate slavery. You had to work and build. You basically got credit.
Sidebar. That was Tennessee Ernie Ford from I Love Lucy, which is hilarious. Go on.
So the way these worked is that you basically were an indentured servant to the factory system. They had company stores where you had to buy your goods and your food and stuff. So you basically had to buy from where you worked.
Yeah.
That was your life.
That's how it is. That's how it is in China still in some parts of the country. Like a factory is like more than it's like where you sleep, where you work.
You had little to no freedom. Like you were locked into your job. Like that, you had no recourse.
Yeah.
So that's how this began post Civil War.
Not to mention the standards slipping in general was like another big part of like the jungle, right? Like
yes,
like the notion.
Yeah, because who cares if a couple of people fall into the giant meat grinder that were making sausage? Like who cares? Like who cares?
If you don't know,
which is what happens.
Yeah, if you don't know, you don't care. Unless you're Teddy Roosevelt, who happened to be sitting at his, and this is the apocryphal story, of course. He's sitting at his table eating his favorite like sausage every morning, reading the book, and he reads the part where Mr. Man falls in the fucking grinder, and they like find his finger or whatever, and he's like, I gotta do something about this. Like,
so the apocryphal story is that Teddy Roosevelt was like finding out about, hey, we have no standards in the meatpacking districts all across the cities, and I'm eating my favorite sausage.
It's just funny because that's such a small, like the book is just absolutely like a socialist work. Like it's absolutely about like, if you read it, right, the book is about mostly, what's the guy's name? He has like a Eastern European name, the main guy.
I'll look it up, the jungle.
And he suffers indignity, and then
Upton Sinclair.
No, Upton Sinclair's the author. The guy is named like Giannis or Janusz.
Oh, in the book. Oh, the character. Gotcha.
Yeah. I forget what his name is. He's like a Slavic guy or something, and he like learns how to be a socialist and like goes to meetings. It's like a playbook for how to do it. It's like that's what the book is.
Jurgis Rudkis.
Yeah, Jurgis. And the fucking thing that's so crazy about it to me is that like just like now, right? Like if we're talking about the jungle, right? Just like now, if you're looking at it, it's like it didn't affect Teddy Roosevelt till he was eating a sausage and he read it. And that's such a small portion of what it's telling you poor people were going through. But that's what got the guy in power to do it, was like the moment that it just affected his life in any way was all it took. And even it didn't matter how many people were falling into the fucking grinders. It didn't matter how many people were being at the company store, like buying like fucking sawdust with cornmeal in it to eat food or whatever the fuck they were doing. And it's funny, you should say 60 to 70 hours a week. I was just looking, I don't have it in front of me right now.
It was probably more. It's probably 80 hours.
Well, let me put it this way. I was just looking at a chart that was like a list of the top or the bottom like 20 countries or in the first world that are like, how hard do you need to work to get out of poverty? Right? Mm-hmm. And the Czech Republic is second place at like 50 hours. And the United States is at 80. You have to work 80 hours a week to go from poverty to having a living wage. So, it's the same thing. We're already in the point. Like people should already be riding the jungle about right now. But it's not going to happen until how much are eggs now?
By the way, when I said 80 hours a week, because like there was no such thing as like you're getting Saturday and Sunday off. A lot of times you didn't.
Exactly.
Maybe you got one day off, but like there was no such thing as like weekends. Like that wasn't a thing. That was not a thing when you were working in a lot of these factories. Yeah. It's like, hey, you're going to get 2 days to recover. Oh no, like we'll give you Sunday. That's the Lord's Day, but you're not getting like what's a Saturday? What does that mean? That's just another day of the week. It doesn't matter.
We're now 2 months in. Eggs have rose in price by 40% since the beginning of the year.
Well, the problem is the people that understood why the eggs went up past years never paid attention to it, so they don't care now that it's not. So they don't know the avian flu, and like a few years ago we had to wipe out our chicken population because avian flu is really bad and it could go to humans and other animals.
There's still no reason they should cost as much as they do. They could cost half as much if we had a working like farm network in this country, but instead, just like every industry, we have the same problem.
Well, here's the thing. These are complex things that happen, but you have people that can't think with complexity that are deciding who's going to be in power.
I'm trying to just sidestep all of the gobbledygook of it and like just tell the people that are listening right now who don't care about this, because that's the problem, right? Like we talk about this. I'm talking to a bunch of liberals who are already not just nodding at what I'm saying because all you have to do is agree that he's evil to like be on my side, right? But I'm trying to say the concrete things that like we all swear that we're voting about and the concrete things that we say are affecting us in our lives about this situation are all actually getting worse right now. It's not my opinion. It's not anything. Trump really did go on the news and say he wants to take your guns away. You know, the price of food is rising. There's a disease in our livestock right now that is going to like cripple our country, and they're trying to make it harder for you to know whether or not you're eating or drinking flesh or milk from those creatures.
Yeah, I think when the reason I get when people say, "Oh, good," there's just federal workers that aren't doing anything to justify their. People think that all federal workers are just people like in some office building throwing their pencils up at the ceiling. Like, they don't realize that federal workers encompasses OSHA, safety regulations. It encompasses all the national park and forest workers, the people that have to like clear roads out. Like people that are paid to like clear the roads if a tree falls. Yeah. Someone has to clear those roads so people can get to where they live out in the middle of nowhere. It's people that safety regulations. I brought that up. Food regulations. You kind of brought that up. Like these are important things that have to be done. Like you can't just say, "Oh, these are just all lazy government workers. Let's just put them out of work." Right. With no dignity to their job and what they've done, and people that of course there's some probably government workers out there. There's probably some that maybe they don't justify their full salary, or maybe they're not doing it. But there's so many people out there that truly want and believe that they are helping their fellow Americans while they are doing their civil service.
Park rangers. Let's fuck
Park
off.
Rangers aren't paid that much. They're not rich people.
Fuck off. Yeah, they work so hard. There was like one lady who like got up in the morning and cut down like all these trees so that the campsite could be ready for the season, and then she woke up the morning of the thing and she was fired. Like that's not tight.
No due process, no dignity to what they've been doing.
And what happened to the farmers? Like, don't you guys understand that this is not how you run farms? Like, don't you guys agree with the people that are trying to make your life better?
They fire some people that help with the regulation of farm stuff. I didn't see that.
I'm just saying, in all of this, we're looking at like all these things that affect like so many industries in America, and it's all the people that prop up these industries are the people that vote for like it's the Medgar Evers pawn in the game, like people like who are like the people that work in the mines, the people that work in the factories.
USAID does a lot of different things. I'm not pretending to be an expert, but I do know that USAID, one of the things they do is they help with I think food supplies here and there, and if some of that comes from our farmers, like the grains, if that's just slashed, those farmers aren't getting paid anymore to produce those crops. Like everything's connected in a global economy, and if you make the argument, well, we shouldn't be paying to have those, if we're growing stuff, we shouldn't be paying our own farmers to give grains to some third world country or crops or whatever. You can have that conversation, but my point is that people don't know what the effects are. If they don't know what the effects are, they shouldn't be just blindly agreeing to it.
It's propping up like relationships with the country. It's like creating jobs for an industry that's like failing in our country, and we're finding people to like do that, and we're subsidizing it.
It could be, I'm just throwing it out there. It could be, hey, we're keeping the population happy so that some weird extreme terrorist group doesn't get the population behind them to then take over or have influence on that government, which would be bad for the region and then us and our global partners. Like, these are complexities that when you talk about what government is, these are complexities that most people don't realize. Like, this is what goes into it. It's not just, hey, we're paying these people money to sit on their asses. That's not what's happening.
Any cred that we have as a nation, any cred in the world that we have
as
a nation.
Gone. We're done.
No, I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying any cred that we have in the nation, any of the stuff that we love to trade on as cocky Americans. Like, if you go on our shit Americans say, and they talk about like all these countries have been like freeloading off us for so long and all that stuff. We're the greatest country in the world. Like, we should be turning around and charging these people for stuff. Like, that's the whole point. Like, why are they suckling off our teats or whatever? First of all, not what's happening. Like, first of all. But second of all, the reason that we are that motherfucker, the reason that we are America in the world is because of all the good shit that we allegedly did for people. You understand? Yes. Like, it's not because, like, they're on their way to death and we said, haha, like, you're basically America. We said, we'll help you because we care about all of us. That's what NATO is. That's what all of it is.
Yes.
And by backing out of that stuff, which people are proudly doing with their American flag, like, what do you have to say about the Statue of Liberty right now? Genuinely, like, I always want to ask people about this. Like, you guys know what it says on there?
Yes.
Like,
so,
yeah.
Give me your give me you're ill, you're sick, you're
tired, you're hungry, whatever it is.
You're hungry, you're begotten. Is that begotten in there? So Kennedy,
it sounds like it should be in there.
Begotten's an old-timey word.
It's a dramatic word.
So we're talking about USAID, which is the United States Agency for International Development, and obviously that's been gutted almost entirely, or like a ton of it.
Huddled masses. That's what it is.
Huddled masses.
Yearning to be free.
Yearning to be free. Good old, we adore JFK. Lionized as one of our greatest politicians and presidents.
He stopped some trends from happening.
He founded USAID. He helped to found it, an independent agency to counter Soviet influence during the Cold War and to run various foreign assistance programs based on the idea that American security was tied to stability and economic advancements in other nations. It
was literally about being the good guys in the world.
So that Russia couldn't come in and say, we're the good guys.
And look where we're at.
And so it writes itself. And then, well, Elon loves Russia.
He's not American, you guys. He does not care about this country like that.
And, he would love if Russia just stomped out Ukraine and took it over. And
they're going to, bro.
So this is the playbook. Like I said, the good news is that we can see it all happening, and that there's already been some Republicans breaking ranks. We're off the rails with this. There's no structure to this.
We're not off the rails. Like, let me tell you something.
I want to talk about it's a living.
Let me tell you something. You know a lot about this, right? You know a lot about this situation because you read the news. I know a lot about this because I read the news. I'm talking to people who think that they're going to sit back and watch the American country collapse while they stay at home and play Monster Hunter Wilds on their PlayStation 5.
Hey, that's a decent game to watch the end of the Republic.
I'm just saying, there's not going to be internet, you fucks. There's not going to be your PlayStation 5 is going to cost $900.
No. See, no, there's going to be internet. It's just they'll just cut out the websites that won't say what they want.
Yeah, it's just going to be Starlink. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll say, hey, you're going to get the internet they have in China, where we're just going to cut out the sites that do damage to us, where you can't talk about it. But the good news is that here's the good news. Like I said, people are paying attention. There's been some raucous town halls in Republican congressional districts where people are like,
they stopped doing town halls.
Where people are like, hey, I didn't vote for some guy to come in and just to gut everything, or hey, I hear that Medicaid's going to get slashed and I depend on Medicaid. What's going on? So the point is this. So even the people that obviously the majority of voters don't pay attention. You talked about the fact that a lot of them didn't know that Biden wasn't running for re-election, but right before the election. We have an uninformed electorate. The point is this, is that buyer's remorse comes usually very quickly. It does not take a long time because, as you said before, as Teddy Roosevelt looking at his sausage, wow, is this affecting me? When people all of a sudden are like...
There's a finger in there, Teddy.
when people all of a sudden see the massive effects of, their pharmaceutical costs rising by hundreds of dollars in a month, they will get the buyer's remorse will be quick because money talks. And even if you're, conned into voting for someone, you will get unconned real quickly once you see the effect happen. Once you see that effect happen to your wallet, it's going to come quick, in my opinion. I'm hoping, because that's the only hope, is that by the midterms, 18 months from now, 19 months from now, there's enough buyer's remorse that, hey, it'll be a massacre for the Republicans in the Congress and the Senate.
Think about this. Are you on Medicaid? First of all, are you on it? Do you have a parent?
Yeah.
Do you have a parent? No, let's talk about Medicaid specifically.
Okay.
Do you have a parent who's on Medicaid? Do you have an old person in your life who doesn't make a lot of money who's on Medicaid, who doesn't have a rich person to help them out? Do you have somebody in your town who you love who lives alone who's on Medicaid? Do you have any of that? In the next 10 years, the Republicans are telegraphing that they are going to cut hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid. Stocks on hospital owners and fucking Medicaid insurers are down. It's not going to go well for you. And people are already dying. Like, dude, like, it's so funny that people like us who are privileged and, going to be relatively fine unless a nuke comes and wipes out my city. Like,
I remember I said at the election, I said, I'm going to be fine either way. I'm fine.
Yeah.
So that's why when it comes to someone like me, not that you should pay attention more, but I have skin in the game when it comes to, I don't have personal skin in the game. I have skin in the game when it comes to watching out for my fellow citizens that I feel I care about. Like, to me, that should have some weight, but for people don't care. They, sometimes they don't care or think that you're just, virtue signaling. But no, I don't want my fellow American citizens to suffer. Like, that's not something I feel good about.
I don't want to live in a depressing society.
No, I don't.
Do you remember when it was like 2010 and you could like go out and everything was like $2 to eat and you could like go hang out with your friends and because you had disposable income because you're like 20 and you didn't have to work in like a fucking.
Remember that $2 Big Mac that's now $9.85? Remember that?
At Del Taco, like before the pandemic.
I had Del Taco last night. Sorry, go on.
Minimum wage has stayed the same, by the way. Like throughout this, minimum wage has stayed the same. Before pandemic, it was like $2 for $3 burgers at Del Taco. Now it's $2 for $9 burgers at Del Taco. Like
2 for $9? And a Del Taco makes a decent burger, but they're not great. But that seems too pricey for a Del Taco.
2 for $9 is a deal today.
2 for $9?
Like, I live in Los Angeles, so it's a little different. But like 2 for $9 is like a deal in today's Del Taco. That's like actually cheap compared to the rest of the stuff at Del Taco.
Well, I got my $1.50 Tuesday taco deal at Del Taco yesterday. To me, so they still got that going at least.
Well, that's because they're owned by Jack in the Box, whose tacos are like what 10% eraser meat.
Hey, it's still they do digital specials sometimes. Two tacos for 99 cents.
Yeah,
for Jack in the Box.
I smoke too. You know what I mean? Like, hey. It's
okay,
we can all do bad things.
I don't like that my friend Alex smokes. Let me die.
We can all do. I'm worried about everyone for a lot of reasons, but I'm just saying.
I guess don't let me get that Jack in the Box taco meat cancer by eating those tacos for 30 years straight.
I'm not saying you shouldn't eat it. I'm just saying like the reason that thing is cheap is because it's like barely food. That's all.
I was trying to stick up for Jack in the Box having reasonable prices still here and there. I was trying to stick up for Jack. Anyway.
Jack, the salmonella guys?
That was 15, 20 years ago. Come on. Cut him some slack. Only a few people died in like 2003 or whenever that was.
That's where we have to be right now. Only a few people died.
Well, a few people more might die if there's less Jack in the Box regulators.
This is what it's like. This is what it's like to be a liberal. Let me tell you just what it's like to be a liberal. Hey, it's March 2020. Oh my God. I hope that all these people just decide to take care of each other so that nobody dies. And then the other side is like, fuck you. You can't tell me what to do.
And then there was
me.
There was me who knew it was going to be bad around Christmas time. But I was telling people that were really intelligent, people, I won't say who, you might know a couple. We got this. We're not Italy. We're not China. We got this on lock. And I said to them, no, there's nothing that you think. There's no evidence
in 2005.
Yeah. And so I saw it unroll in my head. You think I'm partially psychic? I don't think I'm psychic. But it unrolled and unraveled about what I thought it was going to be. I just thought, that we would have responded as a nation better, obviously, and that was where I was way wrong. When it was like, hey,
that was the first time when I was like, oh, we're at the collapse of modern civilization.
I thought we could all stick if we all just stayed in our houses for like a few weeks and have it ice. Like I said, we'd be fine if we just all like, and then we'd be fine. We'd be back to normal life again. Obviously, that didn't happen. That's
opposite argument. Opposite argument. Old and fat people are weak. I don't want to wear a mask, and I still want to go get my $9 Del Taco cheeseburger. So fuck that. It didn't affect me. Let them die. What did your dad say?
You can get your my grandfather. Hooray for me and the hell with you. That was what my grandfather always said. That's how people. God, I love my grandfather. I disagree with Carville that the Trump.
Carville is living in a fucking bubble. Also,
yeah, he's an idiot too.
Wrong. He's not wrong about it collapsing.
I'm not. Congratulations, you helped Clinton win a split election in '92. You're not a fucking.
You did a great bit in Old School. 20
so congratulations, you can thank Perot for helping swing the election for Clinton '92. You're not some fucking big genius that won this election.
James Carville is a smart guy.
He's smart, but he's not some political fucking genius.
He's not a Svengoolie.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
He's not.
If Perot doesn't run, Bush wins re-election '92. Like that's we know that at this point. Anyway, I have a story about my mom ripping down a Perot sign that was on. It was on a telephone pole, so you're not supposed to have any public. And then the guy who put it up saw it. He went by the truck and saw us running back to the car. My mom ran back to the car, and I was there. We rode off real quick.
Oh shit!
My mom did not. My mom wanted Bush to get reelected. There you go. But
that's punk as hell, man. Hell yeah.
Even though you wanted a Bush ex-CIA and may or may not have been involved with the assassination
just
of
fighting
JFK.
for the establishment.
What?
That's punk. It's like
Speaking of that, one of the JFK shit, they said, hey, we're going to release these JFK files. They said that 3 weeks ago. Like, where are they? Just release them.
There's nothing to release. There's still like... Trump is like, there's like, I'm more powerful than the shadow government. There's no force within this government that can stop me from doing things. Twice now. 3 times he's been like, JFK, let's release it, or UFOs, let's release it, and then he goes into like a meeting and he comes out and he's like, never mind.
Yes,
never.
You do not hold the total power.
That's why I think that dude shot JFK in the head on accident, man. I really do think that's true.
No. Here's what's going to happen. It was a conspiracy, but it was one shooter. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
The fact that they're afraid to say it was a conspiracy is what's so weird. It's like, it was obvious he had help to plan this.
I don't think it was a conspiracy. I don't think it was a conspiracy to kill JFK. I think it was a conspiracy to cover up a mistake.
Well, no, but it was a conspiracy in that it was a group of people that it wasn't like, hey, I acted alone. He had people supporting him. Like
Oswald?
Yes.
No. Oswald was weird, man. He was not. Like, everybody always says he's like a guy that has like all these government connections, and he did.
No, he didn't have government connections.
He did. No,
he had really communist friends, obviously.
No, he lived in Russia and met his wife there, and came back after defecting to Russia.
Yes.
And then Russia said, you know what? Can we get this freak out of here? He's fucking our shit up, and he's really annoying.
He had a support group. We just don't know all the players. People try to help him escape, obviously, and things like that.
Joe Pesci, we know Joe Pesci helped him.
So obviously, at the time, we're getting off the rails. At the time,
Clay Shaw was there, naked.
At the time, they wanted to say, hey, if we think there's a Russian connection at all, we can't even say it, or else there'll be a fucking nuclear war if people think that the Russians killed the president.
Killed JFK, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why they had to say, hey, it was one guy acted alone, and, we don't want nuclear annihilation. You can kind of see the point where maybe you don't want the whole truth.
I get it, but even if it was just that the Secret
Service
shot him.
It's a whole Watchmen thing. We can't tell the people what really happened.
Shot him, though.
What's that?
Even if the Secret Service shot him, even if it was the guy on the car, like just to educate you, the story that I'm saying is that Oswald was like a weird guy who fired a gun at the president, missed. Then the car moved. The point is, he did hit the president and Governor Connolly. Oswald did eventually.
She will admit that. Okay.
Here's what I just think happened. Like, if you look at the forensic evidence, I think the most clear, obvious answer is that there was gunshots coming from Oswald. They drove. There was there's ballistics for another bullet that came from another angle, but way too close to the car to be like somebody not near the president. And his head wound is consistent with it.
So you're saying it was an accident? All the Secret Service was like, oh shit, I shot the president.
Yeah, and I don't know, and we don't even know, just judging by how it went, I don't even know for sure whether it's possible that the guy does not believe he shot the president. Like, it could be that even. But it's literally like, I can't think of a good reason why on the day of the assassination, the CIA and the Secret Service would be this glib about something like this when it's so clear what happened if you are, like, following the media. You know what I mean? Like, it was super weird, and I just think they were covering their asses. That's all.
Yes, there's something to be said for that. Either way.
It's not like this amazing, like, 11/22/63 intrigue, like, national inflection point, like, novel moment. It was just
I'm actually open to that. Up. I'm open to that. But he could have made the shot. It's been demonstrated fairly easily.
Yeah, the guy who made the shot to show is the guy who has the theory about the guy in the car. The very same man who made Oswald's shot is the one.
The one in that NBC report from like 1968.
100%.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, it wasn't just him. There was multiple guys that could make the shot.
He was the only one who did it faster than Oswald.
Faster, but you could do it. Obviously,
you could do it. Like, but the point is, it was a hard shot. And
not for a Marine sharpshooter. It was not like.
But Oswald is not a Marine sharpshooter.
He was a marksman or a sharpshooter. He was one of the other.
He said he was a marksman, but there's no evidence that he had any sort of skill with the rifle beyond.
Marines need every Marine, whether you're a Marine cook or you're a Marine in the field, needs to have a medium level of marksmanship to be a Marine. That is. I'm just
telling you what I know. I'm just telling you what I know.
But they don't allow bad shots into the Marine. You will not be a Marine.
He received marksmanship instruction at 200, 300, 500 yards with an M1 rifle.
There you go.
Okay.
So yeah.
And he qualified as a sharpshooter.
Yes.
At those distances.
Yes.
Yes.
And that was within the distance. It was not as. It was only about how much was it? Like 170 feet.
The point isn't that it's a difficult shot to make with a good rifle. The point is that it's really unlikely that the story as it is that he went up there and did what he did, and that it worked. And
that it was just him. Okay.
Yeah.
Even though you're going to admit that he probably shot him in the fucking throat.
He definitely shot Kennedy. We know for sure he shot Connolly and Kennedy. The magic bullet, quote unquote. Right?
Well, that's been debunked. It wasn't magic. It
wasn't. I'm just saying that bullet that went through both of those men, was fired by Oswald.
You're saying the headshot is the one that it's unclear. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm going to be at the Midwest Gaming Classic.
Oh my God.
Later this year.
Oh
What? You don't like the Midwest Gaming Classic?
No, I'm just so excited to hear that you're going because I heard it was such a great convention. What do they got going on at the Midwest Gaming Convention this year that you're excited to see?
First of all, it's the Midwest Gaming Classic.
Oh, my bad.
The Midwest Gaming Classic.
Is it a tournament?
It's a big expo that has things like a vendor hall with over 200 different vendors. I was there with Norm a few years ago. It was great.
I've been to a lot of conventions. That's a lot of vendors.
They have a game center with a lot of stuff on free play. They have a classic computing and gaming museum with over 100 playable consoles. Are you kidding me?
That's 75 a lot of
developers, 75 new developers showing off games big and small. And this is what I like: over 300 arcade games, including 100 brand new pinball machines. I'll be opened at the show from major manufacturers, including Stern Pinball, Spooky Pinball, and more. And there's little museum stuff like the World of Nintendo display, recreating the store experience for Nintendo products during the NES and SNES era. That's all going down at the Midwest Gaming Classic, April 4th to 6th. 4th is a preview night, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Go to MidwestGamingClassic.com. There's already show information up there.
Don't miss the Saturday after party for only $60.
This little part, and then I'll have my N64 guidebooks for sale. Come on board and say hi. Well, it's clear that I used to love It's a Living. It's a Living.
This show I had never heard of before, even though it's set in Los Angeles and has.
This is why I thought you would like it, because it has some scenery that, hey, that's L.A., right?
Dude, I do have.
Is that restaurant still around? Do you think, or that building? That building's still around.
The Bonaventure Hotel is absolutely still around.
It still looks like that.
Oh yeah, and there absolutely still is a restaurant at the top of it. But I don't know what the name of the restaurant is now. I think it was like a coffee shop last time I checked.
Okay. So It's a Living. I have this weird fascination with sitcoms that originated on network TV that were then canceled and came back as syndicated shows.
Yeah.
Charles in Charge was on for 1 year, canceled, came back 2 years later, and then had 4 more seasons in the late 80s.
Charles in Charge to me is like a theme song driven show. Like I can't like get the theme song out of my head when you say the words Charles in Charge.
I just recently went through Silver Spoons on this podcast. You first,
another theme song amazing show
until they ruined it.
Yeah,
that's
true.
That was 4 seasons on network television, 5th season syndicated. Remember, you want to get to 100, the magic 100 syndication. It's a Living is even stranger because it had... it literally...
there's like another show.
It's a Living spanned the entire 80s. It literally started in 1980, ended 89, but there were only 6 seasons in 10 years. Because the first 2 years of the 80s...
4-year break. What
it was,
the hell?
You give away the lead. I want to instruct the audience on this.
I'm just looking at this in real time. Yeah.
First 2 years, as with like Night Court and other shows, finding its footing, swapping out characters. It's about, first season, about 5 waitresses. They're curmudgeon-y, maidenly, restaurant manager, and the really talented, for acting performance, schwarmy piano-playing lounge singer, playing Sunny. That's the premise. 80 to 90% of the show takes place in the restaurant scenes. After 2 seasons, it was canceled. It somehow had a small syndication throughout the U.S.
It also changed its name in season 2?
Yeah, we'll get into that. It was off the year for 3.5 years. They brought it back after 82. They brought it back in like late 85, I believe. And then... like, no other show I ever heard of in the history of the world did that, where it was off for almost 4 years. They bring it back as a sitcom for syndication. Then it has another, 3 or 4 seasons? 4 seasons syndication. It's incredible because I remember watching it on, like, WWOR Secaucus Channel 9 in northern Jersey. They would play it during Mets rain delays. They would play 1 or 2 episodes. So that's how I discovered the show. But even back then, I don't remember them playing the old NBC ones from the early 80s. Was it NBC or CBS?
The original ones?
ABC.
It's ABC, yeah.
So the reason you might have heard of the show is because it starred Ann Jillian. Ann Jillian, who's not well known now, was a big-time sort of actor known for TV in the 80s because of this show. And then she was she had platinum blonde hair. Picture, Kelly Bundy. She was like the Kelly Bundy sex symbol, but like early 80s. She acted like Mae West basically from the 30s. That's kind of how her character was. She's
the singer, right? Yeah.
What's that? No, she wasn't a singer. On the show.
in the show?
No, she was just she was a waitress.
She was one of the waitresses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she was the only one of the 3 that carried over to the syndication run, but then she left the show.
I've seen pictures of her before. Yeah, she was like a poster.
She was a poster. She was a sex symbol in the early 80s.
My dad had a poster of hers. Yeah,
because of this show, because she had the platinum blonde hair. She spoke overtly sexual empowerment for women. She was like,
she's cute. Yeah,
she was the loose one on the show, and then unfortunately she got diagnosed with breast cancer, and she was like one of the first major famous people to come out and say, I have breast cancer, had a double mastectomy, and then she did a TV movie starring herself that she won awards for, going through her breast cancer journey. So she kind of slowly, like her career kind of petered out after the 90s.
Jillian story. Whoa.
But I'd say for a good 4 or 5 year period, she was a major sex symbol that's been forgotten about in this country. It's fascinating. She was like, not want to say Marilyn Monroe levels, but she was
she played Mae West. Like, that's like a pretty perfect little.
That's the thing. On the show, It's a Living. She is like a Mae West type of character, so it was.
She
perfect.
also played Mae West.
I know. But that was probably after the show. I believe that was after it.
Definitely. Yeah.
So it's a fascinating show because you don't remember how these shows were written or performed until you go back and rewatch them. Then you're like, hey, for the early 80s, this is some racy stuff. There's some stuff going on, and it's better written than I thought it was.
People were just less like pearl clutchy than you think in the 80s and 90s.
Like Sonny, like I said, Shwarmy lounge singer that's always hitting on everyone.
Like you remember, like in like the early 2000s when we were like young, like how like younger, how prevalent, like insane, like oh that's gay, dude, or like how often like fucking was like part of stuff, like
so the road trip movie. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
like
it's just so crazy how like now
we've gotten.
You always read these articles about Gen Z is like prudish and like uncomfortable.
We're sanitized.
Sex. They don't see the point of sex in things. They're like, what is the point of watching them have the sex? We know they had it for the story.
Is that a thing that people don't want to watch sex anymore happen? Is that what? I didn't know that.
Bro.
Hence our low birth rate. Anyway, so it's a fascinating show. I'm not saying you should go out and watch it all, but I'm right now in season 2, the last year of on ABC, and there are some interesting episodes where, again, it's like Silver Spoons, where I gave them credit for trying. So, for example, Sonny, the Shwarmy lounge singer, there's an episode in season 2 where a woman comes and brings this kid, overweight.
How far are you in, by the way?
Just season 2.
Okay.
But as a kid, I never watched these early episodes.
They're like the old Columbos or some shit.
So
yeah.
I'm in season 2, and there's an episode.
Oh, we lost you.
Where a woman comes to Sonny and says, hey, this is your kid. We had sex. Remember, we met like, whatever, 9-10 years ago. And so Sonny, in the course of the episode, like, hangs out with this kid and then, like, hey, I can dig being a father. Teaches the kid how to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on the piano and says to himself, I can picture, like, it's almost like it's a character turning point for him where it's like, wow, this kid, I can picture myself being the father. Then the woman admits at the end of the episode, since she saw how close he got to the kid, oh, I lied to you about this. I wanted to get money from you. And then walks out with the kid. And the implication is that he might see the kid again, but like Sonny sits down and just lightly on the little keyboard plays Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, cut to black. It's a very depressing ending.
Jesus Christ.
So like,
That's so dark.
There's some endings to some of these episodes. Hey, we're just 4 women working in a restaurant for tips. There's some episodes that end on a very dour note where I was like, wow, I can see why this got... I can see why this got canceled, because I don't think this is what audiences wanted out of a show like this. Starring
it's the very edge of like what you can do in a sitcom world.
They
like
wanted to say, hey,
there's dad didn't want him and stuff like that.
There's a sex symbol, and Jillian. There's other cute waitresses on the show. Here's a Shwarmy lounge singer. There's a overly stuffy restaurant manager that like is like you don't picture it going into these directions like that. Or there's one episode with Ann Jillian's character, what is her name on the show? Cassie, where she meets like the love of her life, this guy from like I think Argentina. Even like the other girls help her make a meal for him to show, hey, I kind of like this guy, but falling in love. End of the episode, he has to go back to Argentina, and so like you're never going to see him again. And then so like her heart is broken in this episode. So she goes
go over to the piano and play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star again.
Well, basically, but the same thing where like, hey, her character goes from, hey, I just sleep around to, hey, this guy's pretty cool. My friends like him, and now he's out of your life. And then where do you go from here? So like, there's some implications like that are very interesting on the show. There's one episode where the one of the 2 or 3 waitresses that actually went from all through the seasons. Barry Youngfellow, who played Jan.
The redheaded one?
Yes. Who I always remember as a kid. Yeah, she's cute, and so is Dot, the brunette. She's a single mother of 2 kids, I believe. Her ex comes back into her life out of nowhere in season 2. They've been gone for like 3 years. And then they have a nice date. They hook up. And then she's like, I love you to be part of my life again. And the husband is like, ex-husband is like, hey, I just thought we would go slow, even though I spent time with the kid. It was great. And so it ends on another downer. It's like, oh, fuck. Like, but this is real life. This is what happens in real life. We can't just have a nice, clean ending in our 24-minute episode. So, again, I'm fascinated. And Charles in Charge was not as well written as these other shows, like Silver Spoon's first 2 seasons and It's a Living. But I'm fascinated that these shows that take place in the early 80s went to these deeper areas where I never thought at the time they probably did. But they did, apparently. And I had no idea. So,
That's crazy.
I love it. I fucking love it.
It's a
living.
I'm glad you're not seeing the Clarion Call on this one so soon. Like,
well, here's the
when
thing.
They brought in Jason Bateman, and you're like, the cuckoo bird is in the nest. This show only has time. Like,
no, you mean they got rid of Jason Bateman? The show.
Yeah, when they brought in Alfonso Ribeiro.
Yes.
And you're like, oh no, like they made the show into something else.
They
like now it's like a teen cool guy show.
Yeah, well, they made it a teen cool guy show, and the husband's no longer, the father's no longer like the man child that was like, hey, this is part of the charm of the show. We'll just make him a stuffy middle-aged guy now.
It became like a nuclear family on that show.
Yes, it was like this is not the show. What happened?
That's the weirdest thing. I should watch an old show that is. I should watch San Pedro Beach Bums. Have you heard of that show?
No, I have not seen that one.
Oh man, I forget the name of the character actor who's in it, but it's like a fucking show that was on TV on ABC in the 70s that's set in my hometown.
Oh wow.
And it is literally about 5 people living on a houseboat in San Pedro, and it aired for like 4 months. My dad was like, that was the best show. I love that show. I've seen every episode of that show. That show rules. The main character.
One last thing on It's a Living. Last thing. Crystal Bernard was part of the cast when it went syndicated, and she went on to obviously Wings, where she blew up, but she starred on It's a Living. She was on for the last 4 seasons, and then Jillian only came back for the first syndicated season because she had to go back and do chemo after that for her breast cancer. She agreed to come back for one more season. She was replaced by Cheryl Lee Ralph, who went on to do a ton of things, including, I'm looking at her biography here. She was on Moesha. She was on Ray Donovan. Everything.
Oh, wow.
Like once you see her, she was on the new MacGyver. Like once you see who Cheryl Lee Ralph is, you'll be like, hey, I've seen her in everything. And now she's on Abbott Elementary.
Oh yeah, I know exactly who that is.
Yes. So
my friend is on Abbott Elementary.
So oh really? Which one?
Yep.
So the point is like one of her big starting things was It's a Living. So her and Crystal Bernard sort of cut their sitcom teeth on It's a Living. I think it's funny. So there you go. That's my 80s. We should just do an 80s sitcom podcast. Like, because It's a Living is one that I even went on Reddit. People are like, hey, remember this show? And some people are like, I never heard of that show. And some people are like, oh, I remember that show. But for a show that was on for 6 years, you know what percentage of sitcoms are on for at least 6 years? Not many. Like
it's like the restaurant deal, like where they just mostly just all fizzle out for sure.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating show, and go look up some Jillian poster pictures. You'd be like, wow, wish I was 15 years old in 1981 when you see.
She's just got like a very specific sort of, like I can tell why people who were young in the 70s like were into this girl.
Into the early 80s, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she's just got the look.
Yes. No one was doing bleach
swimsuit pics.
No one was doing bleach blonde like shorter hair. Like that was not
bleach blonde like Joan Jett kind of like punk dome haircut.
She went longer later in the 80s, but yeah, like that. She had a very distinct look.
That's lit.
And it was the attitude. Anyways, that's It's a
Black Hearts vibes. Yeah.
Captain America: Brave New World. A Brave New World. I'll just say this about the MCU movies, and this is one that was on the fence about seeing. Captain America: Brave New World. I could see the seams of why some critics didn't like this movie.
You like this movie?
On Rotten Tomatoes, I think it's like split 50-50. Positive, negative.
Really?
Yes.
That's interesting. That's actually exciting to me.
I don't know about exciting is the word I put.
I love a polarizing movie. That's all I'm saying.
49%. It's split down the middle about positive, negative. I think this is overall an entertaining movie. I think it's a solid 6.5.
What's your favorite Marvel movie? Just real quick, just so we can.
Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier. Okay, So Captain America 2 is your favorite of all time.
For these, yes.
It's the closest Marvel ever got to like The Conversation or something.
The Conversation.
You know what I'm saying? It's nowhere near it, or like The Falcon and the Snowman or some shit like that.
The Falcon and the Snowman. I never saw that one. So
really?
No,
dude.
But speaking of Falcon, that's Anthony
3 Days of the Condor.
Anthony Mackie first played the Falcon, and now he's Captain America. Yeah. The issue with this movie, and Kojima encapsulated the thought, is that he was like, Kojima tweeted, "Hey, I'm confused." I'm paraphrasing. When did the Falcon become Captain America? So this is a sequel, basically, to 2 things. It's a soft sequel to The Incredible Hulk from 2008, which was the second MCU movie before there was an MCU.
It's a soft sequel. Oh, because of like
it's a soft sequel.
Ross.
There's gonna be spoilers. Spoilers.
There is no spoiler about Thunderbolt Ross being the fucking Red Hulk. Let's just.
Well, no, they give that away in commercials, but there's other spoilers.
It's Harrison Ford's face on the goddamn Hulk. Like,
well, there's other things that are connected to the 2008 movie. I'll get into, and it's a direct sequel to the Falcon and Winter Soldier Disney Plus show.
The developments that actually occur in that show?
It's a sequel to that which came out in like 4 years ago already. God, there's too much time in between this stuff. That's another problem with the MCU. There's too much fucking time in between.
They almost canceled the MCU. That's what happened here. So this movie was like this is like the Blue Beetle of the MCU right now.
So here's the thing. He does, if you never watch the Disney Plus shows, and you should make these films, I'm telling Disney, make these films as if you don't watch the Disney Plus shows, because that's one of the problems with Doctor Strange sequel is that you don't know anything that happens with Wanda in WandaVision when you see the movie.
It's also not consistent with what happened.
No, it's not really consistent totally with the ending. But anyway, so if you watch the end of Endgame, Captain America does old ass Steve Rogers, spoilers, does give his shield to Sam.
To Sam, yeah.
And
there's a whole show about it. Yeah.
But if you didn't see the show, you're like, what the fuck is this outfit? You have to assume that things happen. That's the problem. And so that's what Kojima in his tweet basically said, I don't know what happened here. And he's right, because the audience doesn't get a recap of what happened.
Right.
There's a main character, not to look up the fucking plot real quick because I forget the character's name, from the comics. Let's see, what is this? Captain America, Brave New World? I need the synopsis in front of me.
I'm going to look it up too because I just don't care.
Isaiah Bradley.
Oh, okay. So he was in the show also. Is he the kid or the old one?
Isaiah Bradley was the old man who was the original super soldier that they retconned in the comics. Who's black.
Yeah,
so it's an allegory for mistreatment of black soldiers and things like that. And so he has a big part in Falcon and Winter Soldier show. He has an important part in this movie. So they do kind of quickly explain who he is when you see him. But if you didn't see the series, you would be out of the fucking loop.
He just shows up and they don't explain that he's the first super soldier?
They explain it. They do. But it's one of those things where, hey, we have to explain a whole series in a minute. And
they're trying to get to Patriot is what they're trying to do.
They show him like punching the heavy bag and it flies away, even though he's like an old man now. And it's like, hey, this is cool, but like you can't just tell the audience, you have to show the audience. So I think that's part of the reason why this is split with reviewers, is that it's like a I don't call it a TV movie, but it looks like a Disney Plus
It's like issue 5 of like a summer event comic.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, hey, this is the annual issue of this series and not its own thing. Right. And there were supposedly lots of reshoots that, first of all, Harrison Ford does a great job in this movie. Harrison Ford is in this movie almost as much as Anthony Mackie. Like, it's almost 50-50 split how much time is given to Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie playing new Captain America in this movie. Like, you have no idea, like, hey, this is a Harrison Ford, like, acting movie. He actually has to act in this movie.
He probably wouldn't do it if they didn't give him a lot to do.
Well, they give him a lot of money. I'm
just saying, as an actor, he doesn't seem to be interested in things that aren't interesting to him. He has all the power in Hollywood possible. There's no reason he needed to do this movie.
Unless they give you $40 million to do the new Star Wars, and it's okay, I'll take the money, give me the vest. Anyway, but that was a sizable part in that movie too, though. In Force Awakens.
Did they talk about? And this is just me. Look, as a Marvel fan, like the big thing that's sticking out for me that I also think falls into this category. Before we go back to Thunderbolt Ross for a second, I'm just interested because now you got my mind moving, and I'm remembering movies from like 5 years ago that, like, okay, I'm a big Jack Kirby fan. Okay. And last time I remember checking in with the Marvel Universe, there is a Celestial sticking his hand out of the ocean on one side of the world that was almost hatched like a giant egg, right? If you haven't seen Eternals, which I think no one has seen Eternals.
Well, okay.
I'm wondering is that like part of the world state now? Like I haven't checked in with
That's
a Marvel
main
movie.
part of this movie. That's what.
That's and Red Hulk.
That's what this movie's entire plot is centered around. Is that thing coming out of the ocean?
Really?
Yes.
That's cool. That's
you want me to spoil? I'll spoil it for you.
Just tell me. I don't care. I do not care.
The main plot of the movie is this.
I still have the real Marvel universe that's so much better than this anyway. I don't care.
The main plot of the movie is this. So that, whatever, head fucking Celeste. I didn't see Eternals. So
it's like inside the Earth. That's what the Earth is for. It's an egg for this thing. And then the Eternals went rogue. And instead of letting it hatch and destroying the Earth and the lives they've made here, they decided to like stop it. And now it's like, last time I saw it, I don't know where it is now, but it was like,
so the plot
coming
of the movie,
out of the fucking ocean.
The plot of the movie is this. So Japan, since I guess it's close to Japan, it's in international waters, but Japan has somewhat control over this thing. They develop adamantium from this thing somehow.
Okay.
This thing is made. It's not clear if they say it's made of adamantium or it's inside of it, but adamantium now is in the MCU. And they reveal, hey, remember vibranium? This shit is even better than vibranium, and it's even harder than the best substance ever. That's what they say.
Finally can beat the Wakandan army.
So the whole premise is the U.S. wants to. They don't want it to fall into bad hands, but basically, it's almost the World War III in a way, but between Japan and the U.S. over control of that thing. And its influence on Ross and him, we have to control it. We can't let it get into bad hands. That's a lot of the movie, is that. If that makes it more appealing to you. But I can see where they kind of probably rewrote it because they sort of... Thunderbolt Ross comes across a lot more sympathetic than you would think in a movie like this. Where I think originally it was probably planned to be a lot more authoritarian, where it's like, fuck everyone else. I want that shit. I want it now. And
full disclosure, this motherfucker is on the Avengers for like 10 years after this. Like in the comic books, the Red Hulk is like not a bad guy, period. Like he is a good guy. Yeah.
Well, in this, he's not all good, all bad. He's misguided, which is...
Well, he's also the Hulk. Yeah. Like,
but he's not the Hulk. Here's the thing. He doesn't know he's the Hulk.
He's the hot version of
He doesn't know. I don't know. I haven't read comics the past 20 years. I swore them away after they killed Cap like a punk in Civil War. I was like, fuck this. This is not...
Dude, that is one of the best stories you'll ever read.
Oh, fuck off.
Spoilers, anyway. Cap is not dead. Just go read it.
No, it's ridiculous.
Just go read it. What are you talking about?
Over melodramatic bullshit.
The story that I didn't read the end of really sucks.
Too realistic for... They changed how Tony Stark and Mr. Fantastic into assholes. I don't want to go through it.
They are assholes. They've always been assholes.
Not to that extent where they're gonna go against their friends they've had forever. No. Anyway, so.
Oh really? I suppose you think Professor X is a pretty chill dude also.
So here's the point: is that you can tell that they probably had
also Red Hulk's like 20 years old, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, well, I said I haven't read comics in 20 years. I literally just said 20 years.
All right. He's like 20 years old. Though.
So here's the plot. Spoilers again. Remember that guy in Incredible Hulk that was like the goofy scientist that tried to help Banner, and then
is it what's his name? The actor?
The actor.
The like famous actor who's in like a bunch of Coen Brothers movies?
You mean Tim Blake Nelson?
Yes. Him?
So, at the end of the Hulk, he has a cut on his head, and the gamma goop goes onto his head.
He becomes Mastermind or something.
The leader, maybe. Mr. I Read Comics, the main Hulk villain, one of the main 2 or 3 main Hulk villains, there's a lot, is the leader.
I don't know who they were going to go with, but
he's the leader because his brain starts to grow at the end for like a half second. So
I see. Samuel Stearns.
So Samuel Stearns.
His fucking dumb ass look.
So it's revealed that, hey, they did a cleanup of Harlem. That's where the destruction of the Abomination and the Hulk battle took place.
Okay.
And they discovered Stearns, and Thunderbolt Ross locks him away in like some fucking Guantanamo Bay like secret prison in the U.S. and basically has him work for him as a think tank and to experiment to keep his heart functioning and to like basically maneuver him to become president, which is what happens in this movie. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty fucking cool. Even though they don't hint at it, at least it makes sense because he has heart issues he mentions in Civil War, in the movie Civil War. So that's what this buildup is. And basically, the leader, they don't call him the leader, Stearns wants revenge against Ross, and he knows eventually he's going to turn into the Hulk. It's this long play where he doesn't know he's the Hulk, or I Hulk, and then that's
Stearns
what happens.
has put the pieces together before Ross has.
Yes. So basically, you kind of see it coming. This is where, if you're a screenwriter or writer like me and you, throughout the movie, you see Ford taking these little pills for his heart, and in your head, you're like, this is making him into the Hulk. At least I know, like this.
If you watch any footage of this movie before, or just catch the trailer before you step into,
but you don't know how he becomes the Hulk in the trailer.
Fair.
In the movie you're watching, you're like, wow, he's taking these pills. I wonder if these have a bad effect on him.
There's gamma in those pills.
Yes, and that's exactly right. So it's revealed that, hey, the leader not just kept you alive through these heart pills and make you president, he wanted to humiliate you in front of the whole world by making you a Hulk and destroying everything. That's the plot of the movie, with the adamantium thing thrown in to bind it together, and it works. It works as a plot, but I could see the seams of it. I could see where, like, hey, they cut out the Serpent Society stuff. That was supposed to be a bigger subplot.
Serpent Society? Isn't that... I thought what's his name?
Giancarlo Esposito's character is the head of the Serpent Society in this movie.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be Sidewinder or something like that. Yeah.
He is. But this, you can tell they cut out like 5, 15, 20 minutes.
Does he dress like a snake?
This was under 2 hours, this movie.
Oh.
No, he's not. But like, you see it on the back of his jacket, it says Serpent Society.
Okay.
Seth Rollins,
like a drive jacket?
But Seth Rollins, who's like a popular WWE wrestler, his entire character was cut out of the movie as one of the other Serpent Society guys. They cut out probably a big subplot with the Serpent Society. They probably condensed it. And supposedly, I think Esposito was a later addition to the cast. That might have been one of the reasons why. I think they probably changed things and compressed the so like it's a little bit too A to B to C to D to E to F, and I think some critics had a problem with that. But I think it's a fine movie, but it's like semi Disney Plus show.
Doesn't totally feel like a real movie in a classic way.
It kind of. It's like
did you watch it? Did you watch
Falcon?
The show?
Of course. Yeah, I watched it.
So you were like boned up on this going in.
Yeah, I knew the characters. The new Falcon, I know who he is. I know his spunky personality. He did a great job. Danny Ramirez.
He's the guy from the show.
Danny Ramirez. Yeah, he's from the show. Yeah. They introduced all. I knew all the players. So for me, it was like, hey, this makes sense because of the show. But if you didn't see the show, you're like, what the fuck is happening here? Probably.
Yeah.
And I didn't see
so is like Liv Tyler in this movie?
Liv Tyler has a cameo at the end, but it's so weird because it's shot in through spoilers. Ross is in the fucking the raft prison, gives himself up because he's a Hulk now.
Thaddeus Ross, not
Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross is in the raft. She comes and visits him because they're estranged. That's one of the subplot points. And you see her through the glass, and it's like, is she green screened? Or did she actually show up on set? Or is this CG? It's like a little blurry.
How long was she on screen?
10 seconds.
No way she
Dad.
did a day of work.
So like that's why I was like, did they actually just have her do a voiceover and CG her into this?
Is Bucky in the movie?
Spoilers. He has a great cameo. He has
a great cameo?
Because when you're watching this movie, you're like, hey, it's the point of the movie 2/3 in where like Sam's having, a crisis of character, and then Bucky comes and talks to him to give him like a pep talk, and because Bucky's running for Congress in this. I don't remember that happening.
What?
In the show? Yes.
No, he was not running. He was like about to become like a murderer in the show. Last thing I remember, he was fighting the White Fangs or whatever those people are called from Wakanda.
Fangs.
They're like hands of the guard, like the hands of the emperor or whatever from Wakanda.
I don't remember the plot of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
The African like warrior chicks that are like the baddest asses in the entire Marvel universe.
That was the start of the Falcon Winter Soldier. But by the end, they're all friends.
The White Wolf.
No, he's the White Wolf.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's so Remo
There's
Williams
some good cameos, but
yeah,
I think Anthony Mackie does a fine job. I don't know if he's leading man material for something like this. I think that's also part of the problem where I'm like, I buy him in the role, but I don't know if he can carry like a series of movies like this. Like I don't.
Mackie?
Yes, and that's like some actors just don't have that gravitas where it's like, hey, everyone's gonna like lay down their life. Like, can he be the leader of the Avengers? I'm like, we'll see. Like how it goes into the new Avengers movies. We'll see.
Like, did you see? I mean, he's done some good roles. I don't know what his range is like. I've never been like walked away from a movie and been like, now The Adjustment Bureau, that's a movie. But like,
I've seen parts of The Adjustment Bureau.
I watched that movie in theaters because I was into that sort of like, the world is not what you believe it is kind of idea.
I heard he's good in what was that series on Netflix? The one in the future.
Altered Carbon.
Yes, I heard he's good in Altered Carbon. But again, that's a Netflix show. I don't know. Like it's.
And I heard the Twisted Metal show kind of ripped. I didn't watch it.
Oh, really?
But,
I didn't see that.
I heard it was kind of good. Like, I don't know.
Like I said, I think he's a fine actor. I like the character. It's like no one's going to be Steve Rogers. That character is like Steve Rogers in the comics, as you know, is looked up as like a god by the other characters, even though he's not a god like in terms of his powers.
He's like Spider-Man. He's like Spider-Man, where it's like, if he's not cool with it, you're probably a villain. Like,
yes.
It's like
the moral compass, right? Yes.
Yeah, like even in Civil War, Cap, who is like the most establishment individual that there is, was like, "Hey, this is fucked up, you guys. I'm gonna fight you. Like, you're forcing me to do this. Like, that's pretty cool."
Well, that's part of the history of the character, though. That's if he thinks the government's doing something bad, he's going to say, "What the fuck is this?"
Well, now that we know about the government doing stuff bad, he does it. But in the '60s, I don't think Cap was doing much.
You don't think Cap would do Elon Musk bidding? You think Cap would do Elon Musk?
You know how I know that he's? You know how I know that he's an establishment character and not a counterculture character? Because in the time when like there was establishment culture in the world, as like the main vibe in America, like conservatism and stuff like that, like instead of making him like have to deal with the government, they just sent him to like a fucking dimension. Like Jack Kirby was like, oh, Cap went through like a portal to like a world where there's no politics, and he doesn't have to see the civil rights movement. He's like doing other shit. He's like trying to fight Baron Zemo in the other world or whatever. Like, that's how
there's no Captain America civil rights stories in the '60s.
I'm sure there's like one or two.
And
like
by the late '60s, I guarantee you there were because late '60s versus early '60s Marvel is entirely different. By late '60s,
sure, but there's still no Cap marching with like on the right side.
Oh, you're saying there's no like iconic like image of him from a 1965 comic, 64 comic, him marching? Yeah,
because he was in a portal, like eating like weird alien monsters and fighting. Yeah,
he was fighting Loki for a few years with the Avengers.
Cool.
Yeah, by the 60s and 70s, then by the 70s he becomes Nomad, so by that point it's like,
that was the dumbest shit. Okay, whatever. I'm not trying to get into Cap right now, but
I used to buy a lot of cheap comics. A lot of cheap Captain America comics were from like 1969 to like 73. I used to find them for like 25 cents. So I read like a lot of those. He's fighting Baron Zemo. I'm reading like Hydra shit.
Where is he? Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, like I said, 6.5, 6.8 out of 10 for this movie. But I can see why critics had a problem with it. I can definitely see why.
Yeah, it's I mean, I think some people are like just mad about how things are going, and that makes them mad at movies. But I think genuinely, like, if you care about the tradition of movies, and I think if you care about, like, if you're like a critic who like sees it as not a buyer's guide for movie tickets, but like a discussion that we're having about culture and movies, I can see why you'd be frustrated with something like, the Disney Plus like Marvel slate of like very, very crowd pleasy, non-risky movie. Like, they had a movie about the guy running for president turning into the Red Hulk, and I guarantee that they didn't do an amazing job about talking about Donald Trump being a Red Hulk in the White House right now.
Well, that's the thing. So I think they probably originally. First of all, when you're making these movies, you have no idea. These are made before the presidential election.
They probably thought Kamala was going to be the president right now.
They made this movie before she said she was running. So, like... Yeah.
Well, I just think they thought they were going to be in a blue country right now. Let's put it that way.
Sure. So, I think they probably reshot some stuff even before the election because they probably tested with the audiences like, hey, this is too damaging to us, part of the country. I don't know. But that's what my feeling is, too. Like, they probably softened Harrison Ford's Ross character a little bit. But, like I said, he did a great job. What's next here on the docket here?
The docket. I don't know. What did we learn?
No, we didn't learn. I mean, literally, I don't want to read the sentence, but you have some experience with the person that played.
Oh, you want to talk about Harrison Ford? Okay, here's why. I haven't seen the movie, so I can talk about Harrison Ford a little bit. Harrison Ford has been like my idol as like an actor for a really long time. Obviously, like pretty much everyone my age like really loves like Indy and Han Solo, right? So like anytime that my life puts me into the sphere of being able to interact with somebody like that, I you know, my memory pays attention to it. And I've had just like a few brushes with Harrison Ford in my life, like
what's happening here,
that I think are interesting. First of all, my friend Jessica had like a moment with him recently because she's on fucking what's it called, Shrinking with Harrison Ford, and they are on like personal basis now. And at the SAG Awards, he did this like bit where it was kind of like a mistake, kind of an accident, but it was like he was eating while she was doing her little like scripted bit to the camera, and she could see him, and she was yelling at him, and at the end they're like buddy buddy. And you know, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that he does seem like a chill dude in his personal life. Like,
yes,
every story that I've heard of him, like I used to know this. I used to work for this like I used to consult for the CEO who was like one of the scariest rich people in Los Angeles.
Scary rich person in Los Angeles.
Like genuinely, like I'm not even joking. Like one of the people that's notoriously like one of the biggest dick asshole, like old school Gordon Gekko type guys in the marketing business in Los Angeles.
Like I'm gonna end your life sort of thing.
Yeah, like that type of guy. Yeah. I'm not gonna say his name obviously, but he was like a huge dick to his people. But he and Harrison Ford used to hang out all the time, and I was like very interested in what they do together. And it's like, oh, I forgot Harrison Ford is like rich as shit, right? Like you forget that he's like the richest fucking guy, but like he seems to be a guy who hangs around his house and like David Lynch, just like builds cabinets and birdhouses and does his hobbies most of the time.
And flies World War II planes every once in a while and almost dies.
Yeah, I mean he's a hobbyist and he does hobbies that are a little bit, you know, like 70s dangerous, if you know what I mean. I don't think he should fly planes anymore at his age because of how badly he could get hurt. But if he doesn't care about dying, like more power to him. But one time I spoke with Harrison Ford. Yeah, one time I spoke with Harrison Ford, but it was a weird situation. So I used to work at this place where you could like take your children, and it was in like Santa Monica, and it was kind of like, I'm not going to say the name of it either, but you could like take your kid there and like leave them there for like a little while.
Daycare?
No, like they'd use it as daycare all the time, but what it was like you drop your kid off for a couple hours in this like room that's like there was somebody there who was like a proctor. I worked behind the desk most of the time doing like the layouts and stuff. But what the kids would do is they would like color in these forms that were like pages of a book or a placemat or a calendar, and I would like take those things in real time, lay them out, and I had like gear, and I would like print and make and hand the parent like a book written by their child at the end of the thing.
Okay, and this is like a high concept play center / creativity thing.
It's like you get a keepsake of your kid's playtime, and it's fun. It's like Color Me Mine, but for like really young kids.
For $80, we'll print you out something your kid drew.
It was a lot cheaper 15 years ago when I used to work there, but like it was like, you know, Color Me Mine for your kids, basically.
Okay.
And one of the side things that we do is we started to like realize, because parents would ask, they would be like, hey, can we like come drop off like a bunch of my kids' work from the year or something like that, and like make like a little keepsake book of it, which I think is like a better business model than the one we were doing. But
sure,
the point is, like when you're on like Lincoln Avenue in Santa Monica, you know, that's the type of thing that could float a store's business when you're up the street from like Lemonade and other fucking, you know, like I've sat and spoke with Jennifer Garner for like 35 minutes in that place, like while she was waiting for her kids to finish. Like the clientele going through there was crazy. There was a birthday party there one time that Tobey Maguire was at. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, nice. Hey, remember, they're people too, actors.
Tobey Maguire is one of the weirdest people that I've ever seen. Anyway, he seems like he's on drugs when he's walking around, but he's not. He's just like kind of an interesting guy. But so I didn't realize that it was Harrison Ford because the person who was coming in to drop this stuff off, it wasn't even Callista. It was the nanny or whatever, right? So I didn't know the kids. I just saw the name.
So dropped one kid off?
No kids dropped off. Like like a bin of like stuff. And
a woman dropped off a bin of
like school year stuff.
Okay.
And I made the book and like had to call them to tell them it was ready.
A book of like pictures and drawings and writings.
Of their kids' work and stuff like that.
Like the kid was probably, how old do you think the kid was, if you had to guess?
Young.
Like 6, 5 years old?
Like a little kid.
Okay.
And I called the house because I didn't, I was just like, hey, it's ready. And it was like, hello? And I was like, and I knew immediately that it was Harrison Ford because it was like, I've been waiting for the moment in my life to recognize Harrison Ford forever.
You knew working at your job there was at least a 2% chance you would talk or communicate with Harrison Ford through this
I wasn't
job.
like, maybe this will be Harrison Ford every time. I just knew his voice so well
Hello?
that he answered the phone, and I was like, hi. And I like immediately started like looking through the computer trying to make sure that it was Harrison Ford. And it was. And I was like, it was so weird because we had like a totally, like, outwardly, we had like a just totally normal, congenial phone call where I pretended like I didn't know who Harrison Ford was on the phone with me and that I was calling Harrison Ford because honestly, I did not know I was calling him. And secondly, I did not expect him to pick up the phone in his house in this way. Right? Like, this is not what I would expect.
What do you think? He has people answering his phone for him in his house?
His fucking, I mean, he didn't drop off the kid's work, right? And so like,
sure, but I wouldn't want someone answering my phone for me. Like,
right.
It's
He's just much older than his family, and so you just assume other people are going to do stuff for him. Like, he's what, like 30 years older than Calista Flockhart? I don't know, but
actually, I don't know that. I looked it up.
Yeah, but
they met on what, 6 Days, 7 Nights, the movie?
No, that's Anne Heche, right?
That's right. That's Anne Heche. Rest in peace.
Yeah. How did I have that like at the top of my mind? No idea. But it was Anne Heche, and
22 years older. He's 82. She's 60.
We just had like a great 2-minute conversation with like Barbs and jokes.
You joked around with Harrison Ford while talking about, hey, this book's ready that your kid made.
Yeah, I don't remember word for word what I said, but I was just being like my normal, like, sort of witty self. Because at the time I was doing comedy every night, so I was just quick. I was just on it, and I was in my 20s.
What could you have been joking about, though, talking about your kid's book is ready to pick up?
I was just being pleasant on the phone, and he was like also like jumping on my vibe and having a good time on the phone.
Okay, he obviously knew that you knew who he was.
It was not I don't think he did, genuinely. I think he...
If you're written down as like, hey, someone Ford, like, how is it written down in the book?
Like, I don't know, whatever his kid's name is, like Hunter's book or whatever.
Hunter's book. Okay, so it wasn't a last name. Okay.
I did not have any notion that I was going to be talking to Harrison Ford, and did not get any confirmation that I didn't like stalkerishly find myself.
Do you... Okay, so that was working. Okay. He probably thought then that he was like, oh, this person doesn't know who I am, so I'm just going to have a regular. But if you geeked out, obviously, he would have gotten weird down and hung up the phone. But
yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly what it was.
So you had to play it cool. You had to play it like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, and I was totally expecting him to be a challenging conversation because he's portrayed so often as like a fucking grump-ass grumpian. But really, I get the vibe that he's just kind of like a granola-y pothead who secretly has a lot of money and can check out from this shitty world if he wants to.
Okay. So how did the conversation end, basically? Like, how did it go?
We were just giggling a little bit.
You
like
were giggling with Harrison?
Like, we were having a laugh, and I was like, anyway, the book is ready. Thank you so much. And just come get it whenever you want. And he was like, thanks a lot, man. Really cool. All right, see you later. Like, something like that.
But he probably never came in himself to pick it up.
Of course, the nanny who I had seen. I didn't realize this was like a normal customer that I'd seen a lot of times, and I had no idea that she was Harrison Ford's nanny.
So she came in a lot for work for the
stuff like this. Yeah, there was like a couple people like me at the place who did the layouts, so it wasn't just me. But
now I'm great. Now I'm cyber stalking Calista Flockhart. She adopted a baby boy in 2001. I don't know if that's the same one. I'm trying to see.
That seems like it would be on the upper end.
It fits into the time.
It wouldn't be like wrong. I don't know how old he was when they adopted, but like it was a pretty young kid. They
got married in 2010 though, but they were together for a while. It sounds like.
Yeah.
But that's
around the time that I was probably talking to him.
He's been married 3 times and has 4 biological children and 1 adopted child. Okay, it was probably the adopted kid. Probably was.
Yeah.
2 sons born in 66, 69. That's not them.
No, but I've been to his restaurant. I've been to his son's restaurant. It's in downtown LA, right next to the convention center and Staples Center, or whatever it's called now.
Okay, so it wasn't the kids from this other marriage, the other divorce. They separated in 2000. Okay, it wasn't those kids.
He's like almost 25 years older than her, almost. He's like 22 years older.
22, as you said. And then, okay, it had to be... okay, it was the adopted kid that she adopted before meeting Ford. Okay, that's who it was.
Yeah. His son's restaurant was not that good when it was close to my house, but now that it's in downtown, it's better.
This is what I'll say about Harrison Ford, and this kind of, it doesn't directly, in a way, it does affect me and you. Harrison Ford. The reason why people think he's always portrayed curmudgeonly is that Harrison Ford treats acting like a day job, which is what it is. It's a job. He doesn't treat it like his lifestyle, I believe, or his occupation, or it defines him. So whenever you see Harrison Ford get upset where people are asking him about, I mean, Conan O'Brien had the famous skit about people asking him goofy Star Wars questions and stuff like that, and to him it's doesn't mean anything because it's like, hey, I worked on this. It's like the famous Saturday Night Live skit from the mid '80s with Shatner at a Star Trek convention, where these people are so invested,
it's insane, yeah,
where people are invested to the minutia of a world of something you just acted in for 2 months,
right?
Or
and
3 months for a movie.
It's infuriating. It's infuriating.
I worked on Star Wars 2.5 months every 3 years. 38, 40,
3 times. Yeah,
3 times 40 years ago, I worked on this thing, and I'm getting asked about it. If you were that close to it, it's probably so weird to you. Where why do you care about? Hey, does Han Solo always wear that vest? Or I was like, what? It was just a character I played. I played 60 different roles, and you care about. Why don't you talk about me starring in The Witness, which is a great movie that no one ever talks about?
Is that the Amish movie?
Yes.
Obviously, he's not Amish.
He goes undercover as an Amish to protect
that's a good
kid
movie.
It's an excellent movie.
I forget who the director is, but it's somebody awesome. It's Tony Scott or something.
No, it wasn't Tony Scott.
It's not Tony Scott, but it's somebody who's.
I want to say Sidney Lumet or something. But I don't know.
It's like Peter Weir or some shit like that. Yeah.
Anyway, so the point is this: is that from Harrison Ford's perspective, yeah, he kind of understands people like this thing, but he'll never be as enthused about it as these people that have built their whole life around it. Peter Weir directed it.
Yeah. If you want to watch a great clip of Harrison Ford being this guy that you're talking about right now, there's the clip of him coming out to the Indiana Jones song where he's like, "The song follows me everywhere." But there's another great clip of him on his press tour for Blade Runner, if you have a chance.
Sure.
The original Blade Runner, not 2049 or whatever. Go back to the original Blade Runner when he's on Letterman. One of the most real Harrison Fords you'll ever see. The guy that was on the phone, that was the guy at the Blade Runner Letterman appearance. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Just a regular guy hanging out.
Yeah. Anyway, leave Harrison Ford alone. He's a nice guy, even though he hangs out with some rich assholes.
Well, once you get to a certain echelon, he lives in a neighborhood of rich people. He works with rich people. That's his life. That's not a detriment against him.
Well, this guy that he was hanging out with was more. This was I'm not all rich guys are assholes. They definitely are in my mind somehow. But this guy.
Oh, this guy's a
monster.
This marketing mogul. You're saying so that bothered you that he was hanging out with him? Gotcha.
He's the kind of guy who fires people in a meeting. Yeah. You're fired. Shut up. That kind of thing.
So that's what I'm going to say. And obviously we see a little bit of this in our world. We're not Harrison Ford, but people really like the stuff we do, obviously. Otherwise, they wouldn't hear us talk about Elon Musk and tolerate it for 45, 50 minutes, and it's a living. But we will never, this is a good and bad. Unfortunately, since we're so close to the things we create, we can almost never be as excited for them as the people that are enjoying them or consuming them.
We're imaginary people to them in some respect.
Well, not even about imaginary people, but if someone says to me, "Hey, I really enjoyed this video you did," I'll say, of course, I'll be like, "Yeah, it was a great time making it. Thanks so much." But to me, it's so far removed at this point because I don't even remember how I made some of that stuff.
Yeah, I used to do improv, and people remember jokes that I do in the moment on stage.
They remember jokes you did from performances. You're I don't remember.
That was 15 years ago. What?
So obviously I remember the process of doing these things. I remember it when it was 98 degrees putting on a reflective fucking sauna suit that I got at the swap meet that was brand new, and had Frank yell at me with a megaphone. Like, I remember.
Yeah, but you don't have like an eidetic memory. You don't have like a flawless, perfect memory of everything you've ever done.
No.
They who watch it over and over.
The point is this: I have a memory of this stuff, but like I don't remember individual things that happened anymore. When it comes to it, I've done like 80 of these videos. I'm not even counting the Flea Market Madness stuff. That's like whatever. Reality TV shit. I've done like 80 of these videos about, and I forgot that I've done some of them until someone reminds me, hey, you did that video. I'm like, oh yeah? I have to like go through my head as if I did that or not.
I can barely remember what games we've played on Super Beard Bros. Like, first of all, a video comes out like every day on Super Beard Bros.
So
but, yeah.
My point is this is my analogy. The same thing applies to actors. Harrison Ford has acted in probably 100 fucking things over his 50 plus years of doing movies. 55 years. He started in the 60s. Guns of Navarone and things like that. So he probably looks at it similarly, where it's like, I don't remember talking to Jabba the Hutt.
Right.
You know,
I'm sure he knows he was there, but he was also probably stoned, bro. Like, he was probably like...
I'm not even talking about if...
And he wasn't on set for, like, any shot that he wasn't in.
I'm not even talking about Carrie Fisher maybe slipping him some coke in 1982.
No. He used to, the stories from Harrison Ford back in the day is he said, I smoke pot, and he'd be in his little van on the way to set with a literal pot with a lid on it that he, like, burned a joint in he didn't smell like weed. And then he'd go like...
He would just get the fumes real quick?
He'd like hit it. He'd like...
So for
I think
him,
that dude is
like,
high all the time, dude.
Harrison Ford, if he had stayed with the carpentry, which is what he was doing...
And he still does it.
The point is this. Like, he would be the same person, which is rare, because some of... Not all actors, he'd probably be the same exact person.
Yeah.
And not like, I'm an iconic Indiana Jones actor. Yes,
that's
the
just
money...
called character. Yeah, that's like
he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but I think he would probably still be the same person. But obviously, for a lot of actors, that's not how it works. They buy into their image and their hype and their fame and their money, and that's happened with YouTubers, unfortunately, as well, because we're all humans, and it's the same sort of thing with musicians or comedians. Some comedians are up their own ass. Some are really famous and are still nice people. Same for musicians. Same for actors. You know, but for every Harrison Ford, you know, there's 100 other actors that think they're the most important person in the world because they acted in a sitcom 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not Ann Jillian. She's probably a peach, I'm sure. If I talk to her.
Didn't she pass away?
No, she's still alive. She's still with us.
Oh, really? God bless.
Don't you fucking wish harm on Ann Jillian.
I didn't wish her harm. You told me she had cancer in the 70s and 80s or something, and I'm like, okay,
breast cancer, and she had a double mastectomy, and she was fine.
Okay, well, my grandmother had a double mastectomy and died of breast cancer, so, you know.
All right, well, I'm sorry for that, but Ann's still with us.
Okay.
And Ann probably helps.
I wasn't wishing for Ann Jillian's death.
And Ann did a public service by saying, hey, I'm public. This is not a weird thing to have. It's acceptable. And she probably saved countless lives by doing that. It was incredibly brave to do that. In the fucking mid-'80s to do that? Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. Remember, there's a time where like this stuff wasn't spoken about, a lot of this stuff.
Agree.
Even mental health issues. I'm waiting for the It's a Living where someone has PTSD. That's what I'm waiting for.
From what? The Korean
I don't know.
War?
Some bad experience serving someone who then... I don't know. Maybe there'll be a hostage situation on It's a Living.
At the Bonaventure Hotel. Yeah, you know what? You know what movie was at the Bonaventure Hotel?
What's that?
I think it's True Lies. You know those elevators in there?
Oh,
they're in True Lies. Yeah.
Okay.
At the beginning, I think.
There you go.
When they're running with the horse and everything with Tom Arnold. I haven't seen that movie in about 15 years. I used to watch it like 10 times a year, but it just came out on 4K for the first time on Blu-ray like a month or two ago.
Oh, I heard that has awful AI upscaling True Lies. Like people were pointing
I simply do not care.
Okay.
I simply want to see the film for the first time in decades. Like at this point, I'm so desperate. I bought a fake bootleg version of The Abyss just to watch it.
Okay, I get it, but like there's upscaling Blu-ray players that upscale your DVD though, like a little bit, right? It'll be fine.
I don't have a DVD. It never came out on DVD. It came out on VHS.
True Lies never came out on DVD.
No, it didn't.
Why not?
Because James Cameron. I was talking to Jamie Lee Curtis about this.
Oh, Okay, I know Harrison Ford and Jamie Lee Curtis. All right.
What do you? I don't know Harrison Ford. I do happen to know Jamie Lee Curtis very lightly, to the point that I've had 5 to 10 conversations with her in my entire life. Is that better?
That means you're acquaintances. Okay.
Yes, she said, "There you are, motherfucker," to me without any
motherfucker. All right.
She's a saucy lady. That
okay. No, I dig it.
But she was saying James Cameron is just like a perfectionist, and so like he's been working on Avatar, so he just doesn't have time. But he did sit down and approve True Lies in the Abyss.
Well, he shouldn't have approved it because it's
I haven't
AI.
Seen it.
There's AI slop in it.
Yeah,
like
I can't speak to it, but
there's AI correction that happens in it where it's not just upscaled. AI was used, and I remember seeing a thread on Twitter pointing out the weird faces, and it was like adding shit that shouldn't have been there. So that's where I get on that.
It's crazy like, because Cameron's like, I'm talking about Avatar, Ashes of Fire, starting with the quote, "There was no generative AI used in this." But I guess it's not generative AI that's doing that. I mean, a little bit, I guess, but like,
yeah, it's generating weird faces in the background on characters.
I heard in Tomb Raider 456 or whatever, the recent one, that there's like rooms that you can walk in that have like panels that were like made in like PlayStation polygons that now look like touch phones and stuff like that because the computer just guessed what it was, and you like walk through the room and there's like a giant touch tone like phone pad on the wall, shit like that.
Great, thank you AI. Thank you for thinking of things that didn't exist.
We don't need preservation when we have companies supporting classic games like this.
Yeah. We'll just change the intent of it, like worse than what Lucas could have done by adding in graphics and shit. Real quick, Kathleen Kennedy, head of Lucasfilm, is stepping down.
Indeed, she is.
Allegedly from Variety, saying she's 71 or 2 and is retiring. She's had a good.
She's 71, man. That's crazy.
She started working with Spielberg like early on, as like
she was there for every single hit.
I mean, she was a low level worker there, and I think eventually she worked her way up or failed up. I don't know.
Even by the prequels, even by I think Last Crusade, she was like top dog with him.
Well, she was always like executive producer, which could mean, hey, she's my friend. I don't know what she did on those, but
and Rick McCallum are the two names that I know from that.
McCallum was the actual producer on the prequels. McCallum was,
but he was Lucas's guy. But I think Kennedy has been there in some respect as a very respected person for a long time.
Let's see. She began receiving producer credit on E.T.
Okay, so a little bit before Last Crusade?
She was a secretary. She was secretary for her organization abilities, gradually took on larger roles in the movie-making process. There you go. Credited as an associate to Spielberg on Raiders of the Lost Ark, so she was an assistant. And then an associate producer on Poltergeist that he produced. Spielberg.
She's not leaving.
Oh, she's not. The article says that she was.
Star Wars chief, CNN Business. Rumors that Lucasfilm's longtime president may be leaving Disney have swirled, but reports that Kathleen Kennedy will retire at the end of her contract may be jumping the gun. Puck reported Tuesday that Kennedy, who was 71, is expected to step down. Several news publishers have followed with their own reports, but a source familiar with the matter tells CNN that's not the case, emphasizing there's nothing there right now. Any announcement of Kennedy's retirement, if indeed there's anything to announce, will be made public when actual decisions are made. So she's not chosen to retire yet, according to her.
But this is the last year of her contract, so we'll see. So here's the
it's probably just that Disney wants her out because Kathleen Kennedy is like the fucking target of like every fucking like bad faith criticism against.
Well, that's not why Disney wants her out. They want her out because she's lost them a ton of money the past years.
It's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's like it's money talks, and I know you love the Indiana Jones movie that came out. It lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
I don't think that. I think the surprise is that nobody gives a shit about Indiana Jones. I don't think it has anything.
Well, it costs way too fucking much. That movie. It was way too long, which goes into the. They reshot a lot, which I think you know. I think they reshot a ton as well. So
they lost about $150 million on Indiana Jones, which is a lot of money, but is not an insane amount of money for a movie to lose.
They're not in the business to be losing that amount of money, and then
businesses should be comfortable with losing money all the time.
Well, let's put it this way.
And they did.
The Star Wars movies grossly underperformed. Only The Force Awakens was the smash success they were hoping for. And then the second one probably ended up breaking only fucking even after marketing costs or losing money.
The Last Jedi, the amount of marketing that was spent on that movie, as somebody who lives in Los Angeles,
was it nuts?
Like I live very close to like the La Cienega and Venice intersection, which is the most expensive billboards.
Yeah.
And usually the only company these days that can really afford to get every billboard is the like Mr. Beast show, shit like that. That's like paid for by the demigods. But man, when this movie was coming out in like 2017, which is now almost 10 years ago.
Shut up. It's not.
The whole city was red. The whole city was red. And by the way, it cost $300 million to make this movie and made $1.3 billion. I wouldn't say it was a failure.
Well, you know how much marketing costs for a movie like that? At least the amount it cost to make it.
Even
$600 million.
Even if it was $600 million and they made $1.3 billion.
No, they didn't make it. You know how? No, they don't. They don't get about half of that. You know that.
The movie is not a financial failure. Same thing with Rise of Skywalker.
That one is not, because it's tied to larger IP and merchandise. If not, they were screwed.
Solo did much worse. Rise of Skywalker did much worse, and Solo did the worst by far. Solo did real bad.
Well, here's the thing: all that shit's on her. She's the head of that.
No, that's exactly right. She's the producer. It doesn't matter even if she actually made any decisions.
Yes, she's the boss. So they spent $4 billion on that, and they got off to a good start with Force Awakens. But let's be honest, they could have put anything on the screen, and anyone would have saw that Force Awakens, because hey, it's new Star Wars.
They didn't have to go in the movie and judge it before they saw it, because they just wanted to see the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, but obviously the sequel wasn't for everyone, because they had no trilogy vision laid out. This is fact at this point. This is not even up for debate. They did not lay out a plan. They had no fucking plan for the biggest movie entertainment franchise in the history of the world. They had no plan. That's unacceptable. For that alone, if I was head of Disney, I would fire someone and get someone in charge to do that.
It's not unacceptable to have no plan.
It's unacceptable to not have a plan. It's
absolutely not unacceptable. Look at every other movie. Look at
Not
Marvel.
every other movie is planned as a huge trilogy that I spent.
It wasn't planned as a huge trilogy.
Mickey Mouse spent $4 billion buying. You need a fucking plan.
$14 billion, right?
No, it was $4 billion. They bought it.
It was only $4 billion.
Only $4 billion? You know how much a billion is before inflation?
For Star Wars, $4 billion seems like it seems like a deal. That's all I'm saying.
How much was it? I think it was $4 billion.
I think you're right.
It was $4 billion in 2012. Yes.
I just have trouble believing that it wasn't $14 billion.
Well, remember, it wasn't a theme park by then. They had nothing going on. There was nothing going on in 2012. They never did the TV show.
All that Star Wars has been for Disney is them buying it, thinking it was a sure thing, and realizing at every turn that they needed to put more effort in.
They had to nurture it and have a vision of a trilogy. Anyway,
probably the best performing movie besides Force Awakens in the whole thing was another movie that was a total poo-poo on the bed.
Yes.
Which was Rogue One, which isn't a bad movie at all. It's just the production was shit on it.
Well, that's the other thing. They had no vision that they carry through for the two standalones, because they reshot both of them extensively and ballooned the cost of those. They famously reshot almost the entirety of Solo with the new director, and Rogue One. They reshot a big chunk of.
And I want to be real,
this and I like Rogue One a lot. I like it a lot.
Me too.
But
I like Solo a lot too.
I would have loved to have seen the original vision of Rogue One, the darker version, we'll just say.
I want the funny Solo is the one I wanted.
You wanted the weird funny Solo that they shot
Lord and
most
Miller
of?
Solo. Yeah, I want that instead of the Ron Howard Solo.
So to me, that's
choice.
The combination of not having a vision for your trilogy, which is a huge investment, and fucking up your standalones to the point where there used to be their plan was to have one every other year, or every year they were going to do a Yoda movie, they were going to do a Boba Fett movie. With the Yoda, the Boba Fett movie was going to be from the director of the new Fantastic Four, Josh Trank, before they ran him out of Hollywood because Fantastic Four was a fucking disaster and he didn't know how to act, apparently.
Josh Trank?
Yes. Remember Josh Trank?
He didn't know how to act? Oh, you mean he was just
He didn't know how to act on set. He mismanaged it. I don't know if he was
yes, I remember this guy. He was the Shadow of the Colossus guy. I remember this. He was moving and moving and moving, and then he made a movie and it was
Josh Trank was going to be the new hotness, and he was signed up to direct the Star Wars movie, and then that was taken away. So the point is this. It has been really fucking rough. Star Wars movies are supposed to be surefire hits. They're going to make money, and they have thrown so much shit at the wall. I looked up the other day how many things were in development, Star Wars, that were canceled. It was 9 things.
It's a culture issue. It's a culture issue at Disney in general right now, that they think they can do whatever they want and that it makes money. They've just lost sight of the idea of art. I can't even lay that at the foot of somebody like a movie executive. I can't. I simply can't, because I have worked in the rooms. I have worked in the rooms with big brands where I'm deciding what the brand is going to look like for 10 years and watch the art team give you the best presentation possible, send it to the board, and just have them be like, make it way worse, please, now. Make it way worse.
It's not
and then
about,
it fails.
It's not about
and then
making
it fails.
It's not about making it way worse or not. It's that they didn't have an idea of a story. So the
it's
reason...
literally about making it way worse.
But
it's
like having a cohesive story.
They should have waited 5 years to make a Star Wars movie before they bought it. For example,
they're not going to wait 5 years when you spent $4 billion.
What I would have done if I bought Star Wars. No, what I'm saying is what I would have done. They started making the movie immediately.
Well, yeah, they started development immediately, but yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They should have taken over the Star Wars property that existed and like become it first. And then
you mean like marinate in it, like but there was nothing going on though. That's the thing.
There was plenty of stuff.
There wasn't
happening.
There wasn't any TV properties or movies.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. It was crazy for them to just jump into Star Wars in the first place. That's all I'm saying. Like, what they should have done, like, George Lucas gave them an outline for some movies. Like, George Lucas had feelings about Star Wars. George Lucas was still willing to be involved in Star Wars after he sold it. And instead what happened was they said, fuck you, George. And they like went and jumped into production right away.
But that necessarily is a bad decision because if his idea sucked, which it sounds like they did, some of them.
Doesn't matter if they sucked. The point is that there was a potential way to continue the brand the brand that it was.
They needed a czar. Like, say what you will about the MCU now, Kevin Feige for the first 10 years did an amazing job being its shepherd and getting it to a point where, unfortunately, after that point, they didn't know what to do. But that 10-year run was fucking incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
But they didn't. But they had the gift of starting with nothing. Like this
they had a few. They had 4 or 5 movies into it before they acquired it. But I see what you're saying. They
started with the movie after Age of Ultron with the Star Wars universe and just tried to go all in. And they went in with the vibe of like, fuck all the other stuff. And I think the problem was just that they thought that just the name Star Wars was enough,
yes,
like Yankees or whatever.
The Yankees, it's just a you're gonna buy it no matter what. You're gonna buy
like
it.
They think it's
yes.
like if you're the whole point of it is that like it's art. It's like a thing that connected people for a specific reason, and instead of like honoring that or like Coke honoring the flavor of Coke or whatever, they tried to do something crazy. And like, did Kathleen Kennedy have a lot to do with that? Of course she did. Did she suddenly lose her mind and stop trying to make good things? No. Was her voice, was her like decision making at the center of this? No. But did she do the job, and did she take the flack, and did she have to be the target of like 1 million hate videos online?
Why do you keep bringing up? I'm not even bringing up internet shit. That has nothing to do with this.
What I'm talking about is what Kathleen Kennedy's job was, and what she had to do at Star Wars, and what that was probably really like for her, and why, if the rumors are true that she's thinking about quitting, are probably true.
Yeah, no, but you say no, she was the decision maker. She had to sign off on it. She was the head of this.
Yes, but I'm telling you, she wasn't like given carte blanche to do whatever she wanted with Star Wars and Indiana Jones and did this. That is not what happened. And what I'm saying is probably the reason she's quitting is because of that, and because as a result of doing what her bosses tell her.
So you think that she wanted to do something different and was vetoed? Is that what you're saying?
It's not that she wanted to do something specific different. What I'm saying is she went into a thing where she was doing the same job that she was doing before and making lots of money, right? Uh-huh. And instead, something changed, and now she was doing the same job and not making lots of money and getting abused more than any executive I can think of. I can't even think of the name of anybody besides Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy anywhere in that part of blockbuster filmmaking.
Well, Zack Snyder, who destroyed the DCEU.
Zack Snyder is not a producer and did not take the responsibility that James Gunn is taking like that.
No, he had carte blanche to fulfill his vision, which obviously was a failure.
Job.
What's that?
And he did a bad job, but he like caters to the edgelords.
No, the point is that he was the decision maker for a universe the same way Kevin Feige was and Kathleen Kennedy. That's all I'm saying.
And I don't think Zack Snyder.
They're the CEOs. They're the CEOs of those properties. That's all.
I still don't think Zack Snyder was like, hey, what I would like you to do when I take a break for the suicide of my daughter is to finish my movie anyway with a half-baked script by Joss Whedon because he made Avengers. Like, my point is, it's a fucking mess all the way around. And to lay the failure of Star Wars at the feet of Kathleen Kennedy is what a 14-year-old would do. That's all I'm saying. Because they don't understand how movies are made and how the industry is and how everybody who is working in the movie industry who has ever made great stuff is probably still trying to do that. It's just that there's all these other factors.
I totally disagree that everyone trying in the movie business wants to make a good movie. I totally disagree with that. I think people get in some of these positions of power that they're unqualified for. They have no artistic vision or the skill to differentiate.
Never has that resulted in a 10 out of 10 picture. That's all.
What's that?
Never has that resulted in a 10 out of 10 picture. There's never been a great picture that has come out that was like just a guy doing what the studio said. That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying that, but the studios don't know what's the heads of studios, or in this case, like let's put it this way: Kevin Feige is revered for his management of the MCU because it was probably the best they could have possibly done. If you agree with me, like it could not have been done better for that 10-year period.
Until Avengers 1, yeah, 100%.
Oh no, until Endgame. Like Endgame was the point where okay, we saw this through. We have 10 years of movies, like 20 movies in 10 years.
There had already been plenty of stumbles by the time Endgame came around.
Well, I don't know about plenty. There was a couple of movies that were like, hey, this isn't as good, but there was no bombs. There was no critical disasters.
Okay, bombs and critical disasters. The
worst movie was Thor 2. Yeah. And Thor 2 was like, hey, this is a watchable movie. It's kind of blah, but who cares?
At the time, it was a pretty bad movie.
Yes, but it wasn't horrible in the grand scheme of it. It didn't derail anything. My point is nothing got derailed. This got derailed. Star Wars has been derailed as an entity.
Because they changed their plan twice during.
Yes, and that falls on the head. It does.
She should be in trouble for it at her job.
Yes.
100%. Yes. But what I'm telling you is, do you think that the editor and the opinions editor of the Washington Post resigned after that note was made because he just like the jig is up? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm trying to see the connection. What does editorial and a newspaper do with entertainment?
He is the editor. He's responsible for every opinion piece that goes out.
He's responsible for the direction of it. Yes.
He's the editorial guy. Exactly. He's the one in charge of putting the opinion pieces in the paper, right? And now he's quitting because a boss above him came and told him that he can't do the job the way he wanted anymore, so he's quitting.
So and she's the boss of this. You're saying so she's not the boss.
She's the opinions editor, and there's definitely a room full of executives that don't give a fuck about Kathleen Kennedy or Star Wars or the Avengers or Indiana Jones.
So then why didn't those same executives fuck up all the MCU movies for the first 10 years?
Because they weren't there yet.
You're saying they didn't come in till 2015?
In a little bit after Endgame, a little bit before Endgame, I would say, when that movie went into production, was when Marvel started to decide, you know what? Maybe, and Disney in general was like, maybe we just make our own, like, writers' rooms. Maybe we just do our own. Maybe we, like, train our own separate writers in our way of making movies. Maybe we do things. Maybe we just bring down the establishment of how movies are made. Maybe we'll just get right. Like, look at like the articles that were coming out when the last episode of She-Hulk aired, and it was like the craziest like script that ever went to print. Like the notion is,
you're saying that was from the Disney having its own writing room and not the showrunner?
Yeah, they don't have they have like internet celebrity writers and shit like that being led by directors who make excellent things, and then they bring them in saying, hey, you do this movie for us, and then you can, like, that's your stepping stone to making movies. And then they go in. Dude, I'm not, like, making this up. Like, look at how they make these movies. Like,
but that's not what happened with the Star Wars movies. All three were written by the directors, though, so I don't understand that. It doesn't vibe with it.
I'm telling you how these things get bad. And I'm telling you,
I'm telling you that's not what happened with the Star Wars stuff.
Star Wars is a totally different thing, but my point is that, the people that are making the decisions that are bad are not the people that are making creative decisions. Simple. Sometimes, yes. Like, for example, with Last Jedi.
This will be a disagree on some points. If I'm the CEO of something, like, all the decisions pass through me, I can sign off on them.
But it's not, in reality, always your fault because of the actions that you took. That's all I'm saying. And I think that she's quitting. I don't think she's quitting in disgrace. I think she's quitting out of tiredness. That's what I'm saying. I think her status in the
I
company
never brought
is
up
still there.
I'm just talking about what her legacy is going to look like. I don't. If
I'm
she's
talking
happy
about the
or
conversation. I'm talking about the conversations that's actually going to happen on the internet about Kathleen Kennedy.
I don't know why you keep bringing up. I don't give a shit what the internet says. I really. That's so uninteresting to me. About
well, then what the fuck are we talking about?
What are we
fucking talking? No, what are we fucking talking about? If we're not talking to the fucking internet,
we're talking about the biggest entity of entertainment that's ever existed, Star Wars.
Yeah.
And what's happened to it the past 10 years and how it's gone from the grade A, can't miss, surefire, will print dollars to holy shit, this is in trouble. And
there's nothing that is a surefire hit that prints money anymore because it's not a Star Wars problem. It's an industry problem. And what I'm telling you is that instead of looking at any piece of information or any reality that will contextualize what happens in these big industries like this, people just want to go and talk shit on Kathleen Kennedy because A, she's a woman, B, some movies came out that people didn't like with Luke Skywalker in it, and C, she's a woman. That's it.
That has nothing to do with the fact that there was no direction for those 3 movies. Like there was no single direction.
I'm telling you right now that the reason that she is quitting her job has nothing to do with any of that. That's all I'm saying.
We have no idea. All I'll say is this.
I am telling you from my experience in the show business industry, like at the highest level, with the highest executives, highest paid executives, that the people that you want to be in charge so that these stories work where people don't know what they're doing and they mess up shit is that is a tool of these people that are working above those people so that they don't ever have to face any consequence for doing something stupid like this. Like, look at fucking...
Oh, you're saying she's being used as a patsy. Okay.
Not being used as a patsy. I'm saying that in the past, the reasons that she is probably quitting now are because she has become a patsy, like, out of convenience for these people. They weren't like, let's get Kathleen Kennedy in there and fuck her. They were like, we need to have Kathleen Kennedy in there because she's the Star Wars moneymaker that's always been the Star Wars moneymaker. And Indy, too, right?
Well, she wasn't always... the point is this. I think she was throwing it over her head. That's all the conversation.
I have no idea about that. But my point is, like, it was not a surprise that she got this job. Because she was there forever. She was the most credentialed, most qualified person to do this on paper.
Well, I don't know about. I don't know if Rick was still around or not.
I don't think it ended well with him. I think he kind of like spun out of it, and
he was just like, "Fuck this, I'm done." After the prequels,
I think I think he just like dipped out. But Kathleen Kennedy's not a Lucas guy, right? She's mostly a Spielberg guy who then like now is with Lucasfilm because of Indiana Jones and Star Wars being kind of incestual in that way. And that's just what I'm saying. Is like we can have this conversation if you want, but like. I think that talking about she's quitting because she fucked up Star Wars is like literally like saying that the planes are crashing because of DEI.
No, I don't go that far.
It's a fucking crazy notion.
I think
she's choosing to retire because she fucked up Star Wars, and all the people that are angry are right.
You're putting words, I think, in the mouths of me and other people. What I'm saying is this:
I'm not putting words anywhere. Go look online right now, bro.
You're not talking to the internet. You're talking to Pat right now. I'm
talking to Pat right now, but who's listening? It's not a private conversation.
I am not the avatar for the internet.
You're not the avatar for the internet. I'm just telling you what I think is different about my opinion.
And I'm saying is this: if this was the MCU the past 10 years, and every single movie is making a ton of money and is mostly critically acclaimed, it's not even put out there into the ether that she might be retiring.
Who else is retiring?
Because Star Wars should have made $5 to $10 billion more than it has the past 10 years as an entity, and
I couldn't agree more.
And it's almost, how do you screw something up that badly? Whether it's her 20%, 50%, 70%, in my opinion, there's some laid at her feet. What did we learn today on the Not So Common podcast?
Kevin Feige should be fired, apparently, or should be quitting.
Kevin Feige should be fired.
He should be quitting. He should be retiring. Is what I've learned today.
We learned that Pat loves Anne Jillian more than you can possibly know, and I think she should get her flowers more.
Anne Jillian is like an avatar of like a happiness that I'm afraid I will never feel again in my life.
Gee, that was dark. I don't know what.
The 80s, the tail end of the 80s is the greatest we've ever felt as a country, right?
89? Really? Okay.
The tail end of the 80s into like the 90s is like, I would say, if you're looking at anybody who's been alive for 35 to 40 years, they'll tell you that was the best.
We learned that Alex is really good friends with Harrison Ford.
No, I am not.
You had coffee together?
You said I had lunch with him earlier, and I was laughing my ass off.
I put that down on the docket. Harrison Ford and Alex's lunch with the big guy. I put that.
I had lunch. I had lunch with the Red Hulk, so you know.
I picture you having a little nosh with Harrison Ford.
If I could have lunch with Harrison Ford, I would be scared, but I would offer him a joint, I think.
We learned that I don't know how to put this. That there's a soft coup being attempted right now in the federal government. Like that's like,
you got to be careful. 30% of people might stop listening if we talk about the coup.
I never said you're being very adversarial in this podcast.
I am the adversary now. You have made me into the adversary.
Are you my Red Hulk? Or
I joined this podcast because you were like, we're not going to talk about politics almost ever. You know, and of course the world is like...
I never fucking said that. This is why I had this every podcast.
In the way that we talked about this podcast 5 months ago, we were talking about, it's going to be about like East Coast, West Coast. We're going to like talk about culture and how we're different in ourselves and some stuff. But, you know...
No. We proposed that as an actual segment for a podcast. We said this could be East Coast, West could be a segment. When we were
talking about the branding, we're talking about everything. What I'm saying is now the country is ending.
It's ending? We're done.
Western civilization. Western civilization is collapsing. We're going to be in a war in 2 years, probably. And
you're saying the Western democracy experiment has ended. We're done.
And now, not Western democracy, American capitalism. And I am sitting here like being asked to think about 30% of people who are like not totally like, you know, in on that right now as I'm watching it occur in real time because they don't read the newspaper, so I got to worry about them.
This podcast
I am the adversary. We have become the adversary.
Let me say this podcast was not designed to be your rage out session. What else did we learn? We learned
it wasn't designed to be a rage out session, but unfortunately, Trump won the election and the government is collapsing. They're closing the Department of Education if they can.
Oh, I forgot to talk about the Save the Children thing. I'll do it next time. I totally forgot about that.
What?
Shit.
You forgot to talk about Save the Children?
Yeah, I have on the docket.
Oh, how they're not allowed to save the children anymore?
No, they're saving the children. Don't get me in trouble with Save the Children. I'll talk about it next time on the Not So Common podcast. Take care, everyone.